Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Revere School Committee. Please rise to salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call the members.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo,
Here.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Present.
Mr. Ferranti,
Here.
Ms. Grabilisi,
Here.
Mr. Sanala,
Present.
Ms. Thai,
Here.
Mayor Arrigo.
Here. Okay, we'll move to the consent calendar portion of the meeting. Is there a motion to approve the consent
Motion to
calendar?
approve the consent
Second.
calendar as discussed at the committee of the whole meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Rizzo, seconded by Mr. Ferranti. Roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo, Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Grabilisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sanala,
Yes.
Ms. Thai,
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo.
Yes. Next item on our agenda is the student representative report. Elney, welcome to the school committee room, and it's great to see you in person. And take it away.
Would you like me to send it to you?
I'm gonna share my screen, right?
Good afternoon, my name is Elney. Today I will be guiding you through the slide presentation I've made for you. Students are calling for change, but before that we will be reviewing some of the club activities and things going on in RHS, starting with Rhea, standing in for Revere Youth in Action. Recently, their most completed task was helping the voter outreach program during the election that had just recently been passed. They've also gone to rallies in support of having easier access to feminine products in prison and school bathrooms. The Feminist Empower Club have achieved their goals of stationing the free and feminine products around the school, as well as continuing to educate their followers on their Instagram page and continuing to host movies in the school building. They have been holding discussions to talk about the dress code, discussing the next steps for our community after the walkout, and equality within the school.
And
Well-
Elney, are they still collecting feminine products for students?
Yes, there is a drive, there's always donations,
Okay.
which will then be added into the bathrooms.
Great, thank you.
While Chelsea, the Youth Helps Leaderships Council, which is in partnership with MGH, their goal this week is to decorate 300 door handles to send to the seniors at Jack Stater's house to show their compassion for this festive season. All of them will be sent this upcoming Wednesday. Model UN. So Model UN has 21 members. The club recently participated in the RevMon 4 conference, where they acted as members of the Human Rights Council, focused on the issue of human rights in China. Participants in Model UN take the roles of diplomats from various nations around the world as they work to solve real-world problems using the techniques and procedures employed in the United Nations itself. At this conference, the students represented the interest of a wide range of countries, including Russia, France, Brazil, as well as China itself. The conference was chaired by RHS alums Sarah Benalima, currently a junior at Boston University, and Mahina Shika, a freshman at Wesleyan University. The chairs were instrumental in guiding current students throughout the process, as many club members were attending their first in-person conference. Next up, the team will be preparing to bring 16 students to Bosman 21, organized by Boston University, over 3 days in February. The Speech and Debate Club. On Saturday, December 4th, 5 members of the Revere High School Speech and Debate team competed at the first in-person tournament held by the Massachusetts Speech and Debate League since the winter of 2020. Spirits were high as students from nearly 40 schools gathered for the Warrior Showdown at Lincoln Sudbury Regional High School, competing in events from children's literature and poetry reading to Lincoln Douglas debate and extemporaneous speaking. Representing Revere were Yasmin Deblas and Raheen Ahmed debating regulation of cryptocurrency and public forum debate, and Herence Nakeh and Camila Souza competing in the group discussion event, and Erta Ismaili serving as a senator in student congress. The team, coached by RHS teacher James Conway, is looking forward to participating in events to be held both in person and online through March, and then competing in state competition in early April. The Book Club. The RHS Book Club's goal is to expand the diverse members' personal literature experience by reading and discussing works chosen by the students in a friendly and open atmosphere. So the club has provided a safe and welcoming environment for teens to develop a lifelong interest in appreciation for reading and in learning. They explore each text in discussion groups, and many times they connect with authors through Zoom or in-person visits. There are currently 19 students in this club. The Culture Club. The Culture Club brings our diverse population together in order to share and experience culture, improve student achievement, perform community service, create relations with higher education institutions and the community, and empower students by helping them to be connected to their school. Students in this club participate in a variety of cultural experiences, such as attending museums, operas, ballets, musicals, plays, and dance performances. Members participate in a wide range of community service activities, including servicing food at shelters, fundraising, and otherwise supporting the local community. Students have taken part in college essay writing workshops. Culture Club members publish Crossroads, our school's literary magazine, which features the diverse voice of RHS students. There are currently 55 students in this club. Now for some non-specifics. The Student Council for the class of 2023 has set up an account, specifically an Instagram account. So far, they've chosen our destination for the future senior trip next year, and more plans on funding it will be talked about. The school mandate on IDs has been great. As of yet, most students have been wearing their IDs, and rules and regulations have been enforced. Ms. Terenzi's coat drive has gained more than 100 donations, and more will be coming in. Clubs have been frequent in bake sales around the schools to donate and or fund their clubs, which has been very successful. POK, standing in for Power of No, has been inviting guests to show students multiple career paths and for college prep support. They also have a strong curriculum in social and emotional development. Students earn about 20 hours of community service each year. Now we will be getting into sports. The first one being football. The football team won their last game against Winthrop, but unfortunately the football coach had to attend a funeral, so I cannot get as much information as I would have liked to. Regarding this year's cross-country team, coming out of COVID, their numbers were much less than normal years. Usually they have 12 to 15 on their roster, but this year they've only had 7. The record was 3 to 4 wins over Lynn Classical, Everett, and Lynn English. The dual meet was canceled, but because of a thunderstorm, and they beat them in a league meet. Their losses were against Chelsea, Malden, Medford, and Somerville. Volleyball. The girls' volleyball team has played 20 games this past season and have won more than half of them. The varsity went to the championship, but unfortunately lost the first game in the tournament. However, the freshmen and JV won both of their last games. Jrotc teams. Teams in Jrotc include PT, meaning physical training, Raiders, academics, marksmanship, and drill. All of them have competition on the same day against Brockton, Lawrence, and New Bedford. They hold this once or twice each year, and the upcoming one will be held in New Bedford this year. Swimming track. Swimming track have just gone into season. They have finished holding their trials, and they're currently in training as of now. Now to talk about the walkout, I'm sure most of you have heard about it. On December 10, 1 p.m., students walked out of the school building wearing blue in support of sexual assault victims. The protest initially took place at City Hall, which later got transferred back to RHS. After Dr. Perella came out to talk with the students, he later wrote in an email that he would be inviting student class representatives, captains of athletic teams, and club leaders to work on designing and holding forums in which students and teachers can share and listen to each other's perspective and experiences. Dr. Perella is working with the superintendent of schools to bring in additional outside support and free up class time in the spring to do the work necessary to heal and restore our community. So what else? Needless to say, that is not the only problem students have with the school. I've met and talked with a group of students asking what it is that they are most concerned about or what they want changed. I will be scrolling down, reading the questions students have asked me and the response Dr. Perella had given. First one. Students have expressed how the new grading system has had a huge impact on their anxiety and depression. Straight A students are now flunking. I asked Dr. Perella, do you have any intentions of fixing the grading system? When and how? He responded with a yes. He claimed that the grading system is slowly evolving into an ACBL system. He is working hard on revision policy to have a formal revision policy. However, he stated the reason why he thinks students are flunking could be due to various factors outside of his control. There will be new steps and adjustments to things that were not effective. The schedule. So students have stated how they appreciated the flex period during the lockdown, and I asked Dr. Perella if he would be able to implement this again. He started off by stating how he believes the schedule does need to be changed. It is very old considering it was created 10 years ago and the students' needs are different from then, he stated. Dr. Perella mentioned that the challenge was that he has to get agreement from the school committee and how the school was in process of putting it into place, but COVID had messed it up when it hit. He is planning on opening advisory to a flex block where students can have group conversation clubs and play any sport. And I quote, students need more time to relax and we want to create options for people to do things, end quote. Classes. Students have said that they prefer if they had conversation-based classes. Instead of getting many packets and a multitude of work, they prefer if they discuss the material to get a better understanding. I asked Dr. Perella's opinion on this. He said, and I quote, I think that's what needs to be done. Usually being given packets does not contribute to as much learning. The whole idea of ACBL is to ask why are teachers teaching this and what can students get out of it. The conversations are being held is to give the students what they want, end quote. Regarding education, many students seem to be angry over the educational system the special needs students have. Though they are supposed to be integrated into a school, to the students it looks like they've been casted aside. Most students see them when they are collecting the trash and recycling. Students want to know why is it that the special need kids who collect the trash inside the classroom. He said, and I quote, there is a small group of students who have a significant educational needs. They are in different classes because they have different needs. Part of the reason they collect trash is to get them to engage in the community and socialization skills. The way the program is designed is to get them to know the building and gain some sort of independence to do things on their own. And I think that if, in my opinion, I think if he told this to the students, I think they would have a very well understanding of this, because even to me, like just seeing like the special needs kids collecting trash and having no context of it does seem like a very negative thing. So if students were aware, I think there will be more understanding. So next question. A lot of them are seen alone without guidance, wandering around in the hallways alone. During times like lunch, many of them have anxiety and panic attacks due to the loud noises surrounding them. Students claim that this puts them in tough positions and in stress because the teachers aren't there to help them and they haven't been around them as much to know what they can do. So they ask if Dr. Perella will be coming up with a better integration plan for special needs students. Where are the teachers when these kids are alone, and does he think more staff needs to be hired for them? Dr. Perella answered with, it is a challenge to integrate students smoothly. It is challenging because students are disconnected with routines, and this is especially for the special needs. RHS students want to know where do the funding for where the kids with disability go. Students started to gain suspicion that it's extra funding. Dr. Paula stated that the state allocate money to special education. It is directed to how much money can be spent on them based on what they need. Other things. Seniors and juniors have expressed how they feel like there's no sense of authority anymore, which has led to the current misbehavior of the younger classes. I asked Dr. Perla what was his opinion and how does he tend to go about it. He said, and I quote, "There are a lot of students who never had closure from their previous school. So much has changed and a lot was lost, which has created this problem. Due to what's going on in the outside world, it has created the behavior we see now and has created complicated situations." He said that they are currently trying to identify and think about how to address it. Students claim that there's a very gray and blurry line when it comes to self-defense in school. They are angry that they get in trouble when they are protecting themselves against the person who initiated the first hit. They want to know if they should just allow themselves to get injured. What does the school expect them to do? Dr. Prala answered that it is rarely a one-sided situation. It's a combination of what happened between the students that began the fight. The first solution is to remove them from the building and find out what happened and who initiated. They address this and make it as fair as possible. It is not a simple situation, and it takes time to figure out what happened and what to do in response. Students asked, when it comes to bullying in school, they claim that it goes unnoticed or proper actions aren't taken. I asked him what his reply to this was and if there was anything he can do to change this. He said that it was an issue on how things were perceived and how they are. There are a lot of things that are not very visible, and he is thinking about ways he could do a better job. It's a long investigation that is very formal. He says that him as well as the staff need to communicate with students about what actually happened and what the protocol is. The environment in the school has been very hostile. I asked Dr. Perella if he has any idea of how he can make the air within the building a little bit better. He stated, as I said before, we need collaboration and discussion with a lot of topics and engage in those conversations. The best way is by listening and evaluating what people are saying. A lot of the issues going on in the school are reflective of the community in our country. These things spill into the school. I'm working with the superintendent to build resources and help. First of all, I would like to say that I appreciate everyone listening through my long slide presentation, and this is my current report on the RHS building. Thank you, and let's work together to make RHS a little bit better.
Thank you, Elni. Thank you for the thorough report. We really do appreciate it, and we appreciate that you have an opportunity to amplify the voices of students, and it's important for us to hear. Do any members have any questions or comments? Ms. Chai.
Mr. Mayor, the superintendent, could you please get a copy of this?
Absolutely, I'll send that out right after the meeting. Yep.
It is I think it is the most thorough student report I have ever experienced. And I congratulate you for the amount of time you put into that and how you seem to work very hard at making it objective, and still giving it voice to all of the students in respect to Dr. Perella.
Thank you.
I look forward to working with you. Thank you, Elni. Welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Tai. Mrs. Rizzo?
Elni, I can't say how much I appreciated that whole presentation. It's probably the best thing I've heard today and all week long. And just, I know myself and the other members really look forward to working with you and the students to rectify some of these situations that you think might have a better school climate. I'm just excited to see what's next and in store for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. Ms. Gravellisi?
Thank you, Mayor Arrigo.
Elmy, I just want to, again, like everyone else, thank you for that presentation. This is your first in-person meeting with us, and I'm so impressed with all the work and detail that you put into that. And, you know, we do look forward to working with you in person for the rest of the year. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Elmi. We'll move on now to public speak. Dr. Kelly, if there's anyone that's in the webinar or Zoom that would like to speak, please let me know.
There are no hands up at this time.
Okay. We will move on to the superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we have 3 primary presentations this evening. The first one is going to be from our OPM and design team at on the new high school. As you know, we've been working hard to make sure the community is engaged in the decision-making process around the location, the structure, and the meaning behind the new school. So we have a number of colleagues that I'm going to bring up now. Brian Dakin, Dan Colley, Don Gorello, I think, Jim Rogers is here, Linda Laporto, sorry, I do that all the time, James Raphael, Joe Lewin. Many of them that you know already from being on the school building committee. But they're going to join and give a presentation and tell us a little bit about where we are right now, the current status. And I should just, so that folks know that this group will also be presenting to the City Council in January and hosting a community forum even later in January. I believe the meeting with the City Council is the 10th. And the community forum, Brian, help me out, 12th?
11th or 12th. I think it's the 12th.
Okay. All right.
I'll get to it in the slides as well, Dr.
Okay.
Kelly.
All right. And I'm going to make you a co-host, so you should be able to drive your own slides. Paul, can you confirm that that's okay if he... Okay. All right. And with that, I'll hand it over to this great group to tell us more.
So thank you, Dr. Kelly. I'm just going to get the presentation up here and see if I can get it shared. But in the meantime, I wanted to say hello. My name is Brian Dakin. I know I've met a bunch of you folks. I represent Left Field. We are your owner's project manager on the high school project. We have a number of folks from our team here, and we have a few folks too from the architect Perkins Eastman. So a combination of myself and Don Goriello will probably be doing the bulk of this presentation, and I'm going to try to get it up on the screen right now. Let me know, Dr. Kelly, if that comes through.
It looks like it's trying to. There it is. Yep.
Sounds good. I'm just going to bring up the agenda here. So we'll jump right into it. What we wanted to do tonight is take a little bit of a overview of the Massachusetts School Building Authority feasibility study timeframe. We wanted to show you what the project has been up to in the last year, 2 years, as the feasibility study has been moving along. We wanted to provide a bit of a highlight in terms of the educational visioning process and the programming process. Give you an option, a summary of the options that were studied to date, and many of which were eliminated, and then focus in on the current 4 options. Between these final 4 options, the building committee will be making a recommendation in January to go with one of the options. We'll be back in front of you folks and in front of the city council to vet out that recommended option in January, and that'll allow us to move forward into schematic design. We'll end tonight on just a little summary time frame for that process of selecting the project among the 4 that are remaining. And we'll look ahead at some calendar items looking through spring and summer and into final potential project approval in the spring. Dawn, would you like to take the committee through these first number of slides about what we've been up to in the feasibility study?
Sure, Brian, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Dawn Goriello. I work for Perkins Eastman. We are the architecture firm on this project. I'm here tonight with Dan Colley. He's my project manager, and our colleague Robert Bell is not here tonight, but you may see him in the future. So just wanted to introduce ourselves quickly. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the process. So Revere High School and the city has partnered with the MSBA, which is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. They have a grant program through the state, and their process is very regimented. And so when it took about 4 years for the school to be accepted into the program. And this program funds schools across the state with basically a penny on every dollar of the sales tax. So anytime you buy something, you pay sales tax. A penny of each dollar goes towards school funding throughout the state. Like I said, it took about 4 years to get into the pipeline, and the funding amount that the state contributes can range anywhere from about 31% to 80%. I think Revere High School is approximately 76. But what's important to point out is that a base rate is different than an effective rate. And what happens is the MSBA tries to spread the money around the state. So they have caps on things that they'll only pay X amount up to a certain amount. And there are spaces and programs that may be ineligible. So it's important to remember that. So the MSBA establishes the process. That includes forming the team, the school building committee, enrollment, space requirements, the range of studies. They have a process that we follow. And the educational goals always in every project that the MSBA funds will drive the design. Not the site, not the renovation versus new construction. It's the educational goals, and those will drive the design process. So the overall timeline is approximately 5 to 8 years, depending on which design moves forward. Thank you. It's a little out of order, Brian, so bear with me.
Tell me where to go.
I was just gonna say that, yeah. So I appreciate it. Thank you for moving this forward. This is the piece that we have been contracted for. So it's 2 phases, feasibility study and schematic design. And these 2 phases basically develop, so we establish educational programming, visioning, we look at the sites, we compare costs, and get community engagement. From there, we refine the plan options, and I'll walk you through some of what we've been through. And we do massing and design studies. And coming out of this first phase, the feasibility, it's those 2 sort of teal colors. We're almost at the end of that. What happens is you come out of that with a final assessment, 1 preferred option. So we're hoping to get there by February, January, February timeframe, and then move into schematic design. And from there, you take the 1 design that emerged from the feasibility study, and you develop it further with, materiality, design decisions, finalize the scope, and get the project to a budget, which will be put forward for funding. And that is like late summer, early fall next year. So you want to go to the next slide for me, please? This is the building committee composition. Like I said, the MSBA has very strict rules about who needs to be on the building committee. We have a wide range of, including some of your own school committee representatives, Mayor Arrigo, and of course, Superintendent Diane Kelly. And so we just wanted to show you the representation on the committee. It's important to know who is working with us. So next slide, please. This is the process at this point that we've walked through with the community. We've had more than 80 meetings and workshops. More than half of them have been open to the public, community forums with city leaders, school leaders, teachers, parents, business and community members, as well as health and safety officials. So this just gives a sampling of a lot of what we've been doing for the last year. Next slide, please. This is the timeline I spoke about, 5 to 8 years. We're in the end, it's actually a little bit further. Yeah, we're somewhere right through there in that teal bar, which is the feasibility, and then the schematic design. and then it'll move into design development, construction documents, and then of course construction. So depending on which option rises to the top and becomes the preferred option, this timeline may vary. And Brian will speak a little bit to that later in the presentation. Next slide, please, Brian. So as I mentioned, the MSBA's process, it's really educationally driven. And I know that's important to this group. It should be important to everyone as we design schools. So just want to be really clear that the educational plan will drive this design. This is just a concept sketch. This emerged from the visioning sessions that we had, gosh, last spring. I think that, that this came out of those visioning sessions. Next slide, please, Brian. The overarching educational goals are to create a heart of the school. This is a just a idea and a rendering that we put forward in our interview. It shows the energy and connections throughout the school that could emerge from a heart of the school, and also that it be zoned for community and extended use, which is really important to the city of Revere. Next slide, please. We want to create flexible, adaptive spaces, spaces where students can learn both in general classroom settings, but also small groups and breakout rooms. We have collaborative clusters, also known as neighborhoods, and then varied spaces with specialty labs as well. A lot of these, the specialty labs will connect to that heart of the school that I just described. Next slide, please. Another educational goal is connecting the whole campus to the community. We'd have outdoor learning, indoor and outdoor connections, facilities that the city can use for health and wellness, maybe a walking path, lots of connections on the campus as a whole. Next slide, please. And of course, there'll be a focus on sustainability. We want a healthy building. We want to focus on health and well-being. It's important to the school, to the city of Revere, but also to us as we design. We really we embed a lot of sustainable concepts into our designs from the early design decisions that we make. So a piece of that is being really energy efficient and designing a building that's easy to operate and of course will hopefully cost less than the existing building. So next slide, please, Brian. Thank you. So we explored over 8 different sites in the city. As you know, Revere does not have a lot of available properties, but we tried to look under every rock and stone. 8 sites were explored and over 17 options were considered. The 11 were assessed iteratively, and that resulted in 4 and then later distilled down to 3 final options. And I'm going to walk you through all of these briefly. I think Brian's this is your slide to cover, right, Brian?
Yeah, I think so. I wanted to give just a little history. Dawn's going to go into the options that still remain, that the building committee has sort of all these X's on this slide are as specific iterations on specific sites were ruled out by the building committee. And I wanted to just spend a second here and probably start on the bottom, this bottom cluster of sort of peach colored options down here, all offsite options that were really the result of, as Dawn said, turning over every stone. We looked at Caddy Farms up in North Revere. Building committee determined that was way too far out of the central part of the city. We would have need to eminent domain our way into that site to not put traffic through Saugus, so Caddy Farms was eliminated. We looked at a few other sites, one expanding the McKinley Middle School, another taking over the Stop and Shop down Esquire Road across from the former movie theater, and another what I'd consider a bulk eminent domain over at Furlong Drive between Suffolk Downs and the highway. All of those, for various reasons, were eliminated, mostly because of the cost to obtain the land and the shortcomings of where that land is and how stitching a building of this size would be in there. Moving up the page, I think folks have heard that we did spend a lot of time studying whether an option for a new high school could work down at the Revere Housing Authority. Ultimately, that was removed from consideration after attending a number of Revere Housing Authority boards. And the building committee decided by about October that there was no feasible option left without the support of the RHA board. So that site has been eliminated. The top 2 sites, the existing site, all in blue, options in blue, and Wonderland, have also been around from the beginning. The beginning meaning the beginning of the feasibility study. The very top bar, I just want to note, is a technicality that we must carry through. It's called the base repair option. Basically, what is the cost to just bring the existing building up to code not moving walls, not changing classrooms. Doesn't really solve the programmatic issues that we know the new building would solve, but the MSBA requires that to be studied. What you'll see here is that there are three real arrows left on the right side of this. Those three arrows, in addition to the base repair, form the three options that are left. One is an all-new build at the existing high school on Aracola Park. One is a mostly new build on Aracola Park that keeps the existing field house, so there's a component of a renovation there. And then we have all new on Wonderland. None of the options that remain involve eminent domain. We have systematically moved away from all eminent domain options. On that note, Dawn's going to jump back in here and bring you through those 2 to 3 options that are still left on the table that we're asking a decision be made on in the coming weeks.
Hi, Brian. It looks like Stacy has her hand up.
Sorry, I missed that, Stacy.
Sorry, I'm wrong.
I think
accidentally
we
hand
that
up.
from earlier.
Okay.
Great, so I'll take over from here, Brian. Thank you. That was a perfect segue. So as Brian mentioned, there's a base repair. We're not planning on walking through. There's no visuals for that, but that is a MSBA requirement to carry forward. The 2 remaining sites, as Brian mentioned, the existing high school site alongside Aracola Park, thank you, and the Wonderland site. So I will first walk you through the all new construction on the existing site. It basically, next slide please, Brian, would cite the new building. So in the dashed red line, would you outline it? Perfect, Brian, thank you. That's the existing high school building. That's the footprint of it right off of School Street on to the left of your screen. We would build new on the 2 Aracola Park fields, the baseball and multipurpose fields to the east of the existing building. Thank you. There is a culvert that's indicated in the purple dash line above. We would have to move that. It kind of cuts right through the site and created a pinch point that any new construction footprint would have a hard time fitting on this site. There's a lot of constraints. You can see both the existing high school as well as Remy Marsh to the north, and as well as the highways and School Street on bookended. So needless to say, this site became quite tight quickly, but we were able to fit a new building in. If you would go to the next slide, Brian, I'm not going to get too deep into the site plan. If folks have questions on either this or Wonderland, we can certainly come back to it. We essentially have some underground parking. This building, the footprint needs to be raised, the actual building, due to the 100-year floodplain. So we took advantage of that, both with that and the tight site, to provide some underground parking. This is the first floor plan. That heart of the school that I'm describing sort of cuts north-south on the plan through where it says Cap Commons. Thank you, Brian. Right through the middle of the building. And it basically connects all the major spaces. So the main entry is to the left here. You come in, you have the administration, and of course, off of that heart of the school, you have the auditorium, the music suite wing, the lower locker rooms and gym spaces, the community health center, tech spaces, and of course, through the middle is actually the cafeteria and commons. And then to the north, you can see sort of the splayed academic wings. Those are 4-story academic wings, and not a lot changes between them. They're basically general classroom, science labs, special ed spaces, and some administrative spaces. One other thing, before you go back real quick, Brian, if you don't mind. One other thing, central admin is a standalone building up on the left. It's kind of tucked into that corner of the site plan where it's kind of out of the way. The footprint just got really tight with it connected to the building.
Right over here in the corner.
Yep, thank you. To the north, the far north piece. Thank you. And it's just a 1-story central admin for Superintendent Kelly and business office and all of the associated offices required for district offices. So we'll move up in the building. The heart of the school is multi-story. It cuts through, you can see down into it. There's a 9th grade cafeteria, and the main gymnasium is actually on the 2nd floor. We've done this successfully in other communities. It's quite nice that this connects to the heart of the school at the 2nd floor and really creates a space. Just due to the tight constraints of the site, we decided that this made sense with the locker rooms tucked under. Next slide, please. The media commons, the library is up on the 3rd floor, and again, tightly connected to the heart of the school. We have arts and tech, and of course the general classroom wings that appear on each floor. And then lastly, we have the 4th floor. Thank you, Brian. And that's just really the academic wings at the uppermost story. We did some quick massing studies. There's the roof plan. Thank you. I think the next is, yep. So this is what it looks like on the site, massed up against some of the adjacent homes and buildings. That's the overall site. You can see it kind of from a bird's eye, front looking east from the west side of the site. And Brian, do you want to get into a little bit of the schedule?
Sure. The both schedules for the options that we're looking at here are remarkably similar. So the thing I'd lead with is that there's no real there's no advantageous schedule when you talk Wonderland versus existing. I'm going to zoom right to the real meat and potatoes of the schedule. A summer 2026 move into the new building is what this both schedules have. They vary a little bit in how we get there. What you'll see is this initial bar up here is the feasibility study phase that we're still in. As Dawn noted before, we're at the point where we need a decision on which option to go with. We'll then spend the spring and summer doing schematic design. In terms of this site option, the one thing I'd like to mention is a state law Article 97 comes into play on this site. That is Parkland Aracola Park, and we would need to get multiple layers of city approval and ultimately state legislation approval to relocate that park. And basically what we're looking to do is build on the park, knock down the old building, rebuild the park where the old building was. That will take about a 12 to 13 month process that if we choose this site, we're going to get in the spring, get those approvals done so that when spring, summer 2023 comes around, we can get a shovel in the ground on this site. So I'm not going to go through a ton of detail on this site because on the schedule, because again, both options are pretty much similar and we can come back to it. But what this all lays out to is a summer 2026 move into the new building, demolition of the existing site, then lasting 12 to 15 months into 2027. Project would be complete in fall 2027. What I also wanted to do here on these next few slides is to very quickly just walk folks through how a development for a high school would happen at this existing site. We've got a lot of questions of, is it possible to fit a building here? How would the existing facility function during construction? So I'm going to try to fly through how this would get phased out. We don't need phasing diagrams for Wonderland. It's a strong difference between these two options. Wonderland has put a fence around it, build it. We're in very few people's way. We're not in the school's way, less abutters. Here, we're going to be in everybody's way. And I wanted folks to understand how we'd pull it off. We'd come in the summer of 2023 and effectively, once students are out, take over in the entire area shown in green. The idea would be to start getting the culvert that Dawn mentioned that would be under the new building out of the way. By the end of that summer, we would pull the construction site in to allow traffic by the RMA and by the existing building. We'd also, by the end of that summer, be looking to relocate temporary parking over on Ambrose Field. Right now, there's no way to match the 300 to 400 spots that we need on site, even having off-site parking we looked into. The conclusion, if we need to build here, is that we're going to need to use Ambrose Field for about 2 years for temporary parking. That would involve basically turning it into a gravel lot. The use of the baseball field would be gone for that 2 years. The playground would be maintained. Later in these couple slides later, you'll see us returning that to a baseball field. But a key takeaway here is that first summer in 2023, we would need access to that field. We'd need to move teacher and student parking over there. That makes for our large construction phase. The area in red is where we'd be building the new large building. Staff and students would have to be parking on Ambrose, coming in Putnam Street onto the site through a protected sort of corridor and into the new building. This would last 2 years to about 2.5 years to get the major portion of construction done. By summer 2026, we would be able to decommission the temp parking on Ambrose, restore that field. We would also branch right out to up against the existing building after school is out to complete the entry loop for the new building. This would lead to the last phase of school occupancy in that summer 2026, the green zone. This is now a new school with parking with a fence around the orange area. So basically from summer 2026 through fall 2027, that existing building area would be a demolition site, and those fields would not effectively, the replacement of Ericola Park would follow the demolition of that project. I'm gonna recap budget slides when we get to the end real quick. Long story short on the budget is probably out of everything you're going to see tonight, this is going to get a little more work, a little more refinement in the coming weeks, and what you will see in front of you in the middle of January will probably be a little bit different than the numbers that are on the screen here, but we'll stop and talk budget at the end here. What I wanted to quickly recap now is something Dawn noted earlier about the reimbursement rate. Revere's base rate is 76%. We're assuming that through some extra incentives that we can help secure, you'll be looking at about a 79.35% reimbursement rate. However, that is based on eligible costs, not total costs. You can't look at any of these total budgets and take 79% off them and assume that's what the bill to Revere is going to be. A number of these budget categories, such as land acquisition on these MSBA projects, is categorically ineligible. Doesn't matter what your reimbursement rate is, there is no reimbursement for them. Some program spaces in the building are ineligible. In this 400,000+ square foot design, about 20,000 square feet of that is ineligible building area. The other thing that really gets you are the caps that MSBA implements. There's a site cap that projects with more site work, more of it has to be borne by the city, by the municipality, because an MSBA will only cover 8% of the value of the building. As far as site work goes, you're typically 2 to 3 times that value to actually do the site work associated with the high school when we factor in all the parking, all the fields that are required, site amenities. And the big one is really the building square foot cap. MSBA contributes up to $360 a square foot. Typically, and we're going to break this down a little more about this market rate, but that's really only about half of the building of these types are going to cost. $650 to $750 a square foot is what we are seeing out in the construction industry of these schools. That's not shooting for the top of the curve either. We're going to come back with a little more info in January and show some other projects, but we're reliably seeing these high school buildings land in that $650 to $700 square foot to build. Only $360 a square foot of that is participated in. There's various other caps that the MSBA has implemented, but really what we're trying to do is a little more analysis on the changes to the caps that occurred in July of this year. MSBA changed a bunch of caps. Long story short, what we are seeing and our colleagues in the industry are seeing is the new caps that MSBA implements basically makes it so that achieving only about half your total reimbursement rate is possible. So if a district has an upwards of 80% reimbursement rate, we're seeing that often translates to effectively reimbursement of closer to 40%. The things that drive that are complex site work, which we have a lot of here. We're in the tidal flood zone. We have a lot of stormwater management to deal with. We have a culvert to move on the existing site. We have a lot of parking, a lot of fields. So this is all sort of going towards, if you see the effective reimbursement rate on these budget slides being significantly lower than the 76 to 79%, this is why. We will be breaking this down a little bit more. To keep it moving along here, Dawn's going to talk about one of the alternate studies done on the existing site that effectively keeps the field house building.
Thank you, Brian. So you can see the footprint to the east, the right-hand side of the screen, and it's essentially the same footprint, but what we were asked to do was consider looking at keeping the existing field house, adding some new locker rooms, and I believe the central admin went over there as well. And what we did was connect it with a few program spaces through the middle via a covered walkway. Educationally, this is probably not as ideal. It disconnects the athletics program from the heart of the school and the rest of the school. But what it does do is keeps the existing field house, which is much larger than what the MSBA would otherwise allow in a new building. It's approximately 24,000 square feet. And I think the max that we would get is 18,000 plus or minus square feet. So that's the benefit of it. The downside is that phasing and the displacement of the athletics program is substantial to, the educators. For, is it 2 years, Brian? I forget.
Yeah, that's a
2
key
school
thing.
years.
key thing to keep in mind here is that if we're building a new school basically without the athletic department, because the athletic department and gym would be in the reno. We can't get to this reno until we get into open the new building. So the best case scenario we see here is this building would open, and we're not sure how athletics could be supported for a 1 to 2 year period until we can renovate our way down into this field house and make it an occupiable building. So the biggest challenge and drawback of this site is what happens to athletics in the 2 years between this new building opening without gyms and us being able to abate the entire building here and renovate down. I want to, when people think renovation here, we're talking gut reno, down to steel, down to foundations and roof slab, then rebuild it. It's not a light reno here. So that's the major challenge of this plan.
Right, and it also disconnects the two replacement, the baseball and the multipurpose fields on opposite sides of the site. So there's a disconnect there that this puts forward. So this is we only studied the lower level, but you can see the gymnasium in bright yellow. The balance of the new building has mostly remained the same. We just took the gym piece off and slid that program over to have a connection, as well as the locker rooms are indicated in kind of the brown L shape to the bottom of the gym, and the central admin, the red, to the top of the gym.
And this schedule is mostly similar. What I would do here is, this is sort of just a visual on what I'm saying, is when you'd move into this new building that didn't have a gym in summer 2026, we would need time to get that old gym renovated. This schedule probably extends out a little bit into 2027. This demo site work and fields would probably go a little bit later, but same schedule on the front end. The new building opens up in 2026. We'll also just quickly show these costs at the last slide, just so we can look at costs on one slide with all of them next to each other. Dawn, would you like to go through Wonderland?
Yes, please. Okay, so lastly, we have the all new construction on Wonderland. We had a different footprint in building design, and we were recently asked to consider putting a similar building as what we were showing, just educationally and programmatically, all the adjacencies and how the design was evolving, to bring something similar over to this site. So some of this will look and feel similar. What we've done is adjusted to how it would fit on the Wonderland site. So this particular site, we are not assuming that we would take the whole property. Brian, would you just point out to the north, thank you. There's still additional property just north of that datum line that would be available for future development. And we're still tweaking how much would be needed for the campus versus how much would be still available to develop. But the site program is essentially the same. We have a baseball field, a multi-purpose field, and 5 tennis courts. We do have some surface parking as well as some underground parking. We've got a couple curb cuts and connections that tie directly across from the T station. That's how you enter the site. We've got separate car and bus drop, similar to the other site. The main entry is to the east here. Brian, would you kind of circle? It's kind of right near the red car drop area. There's that arrow. Yep, perfect. So the cars come in, drop off on the passenger side, and then loop back around. The buses come in and drop on the right-hand side. Yep, down. And the students enter in through a south door into the heart of the school. So the idea is that all the students come into that heart of the school that I described earlier, which this plan still has and supports. So here the classroom bars are to the south. You can see the similar geometry of that. And then the gymnasium is to the upper left and the auditorium is to the upper right. It's rotated in this plan to create a better, more welcoming entry. So that's really the only plan difference. So Brian, if you want to flip through, again, we've got some underground parking. This particular site, we need to be a few feet higher because it's closer to the ocean, therefore more susceptible to the 100-year floodplain. Yep, thank you. We've got the heart of the school that is north-south on this particular plan. And again, really the only major difference is the main entry side has flipped. The whole building has flipped, so the classrooms are to the south, not the north. They're facing the main street in this particular, the main road and rotary in this option, and then the auditorium rotated. You want to just flip through. I do understand we may not need the central admin here if the existing high school building remains in its current location. So that will be a change that we will make. But as Brian flips through some of these upper floor plans, very similar. The gym is still at the second floor, the media center is still at the third, and then this is the massing. So you can see what a 4-story with an elevated underground parking would look like on the Wonderland site.
Sounds good, and basically the same schedule. Don't need to spend a lot of time schedule. The thing that makes Wonderland different is we don't have to deal with that Article 97 park relocation. We do have to deal with eminent domain or land acquisition. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the budget slide that we'll have up in 1 second. But basically, if this is the option, next spring is going to trigger a number of back and forth discussions through the mayor's office with the owners of this parcel to see if we can come to a friendly eminent domain taking. Regardless, if we could or couldn't, if this is the way we're going, we would look to basically start the formal eminent domain process at the end of next year, plus or minus take about 13 months. City would have the deed in hand and be able to start construction in 2024, and ultimately lead towards that same summer 2026 occupancy. I'll talk budget on the last slide when we have it here. What I wanted to get into, and this is some items that we're still working with the city on. There's been a lot of questions that the building committee and other groups have raised about, well, what would building on Wonderland do long term? The one I want to throw out there that I think a number of you are familiar with is the idea to build on Wonderland is in part driven by it saves the existing high school site to potentially be used as a middle school down the road. If we build on Ericola Park, we need to knock down the existing building. Both buildings could not coexist. There's not enough space. There's not enough parking. So the fundamental win of Wonderland is that the existing site is maintained for future use as a magnet middle. The fundamental loss is Wonderland could not be entirely developed by a private developer and yield additional tax revenues for the city that in part could help fund this project and the borrowing in this project. So quick summary on Wonderland, it's a total of 33.65 acres owned by CBW. There's other parcels down there, but we're focusing on the ones owned by CBW. The current tax yield is about $500,000. We're going to be working with the city for various scenario of if that whole site or if part of the site was developed, what would the theoretical tax returns be? We think we only need 25 of those 33.65 acres. We think we can even squeeze that down a bit. In fact, I think the design team probably already has. So by the time these numbers get back in front of you, if a few things have changed, that's why we've squeezed this site plan as much as we can to get the land acquisition value. Basically, if we're holding at 25 for these numbers, 8.65 acres would remain for future development, and we're working with the city to project what could be developed there. One important note is nothing down there is as of right. Anything that gets developed would require a special permit that puts a lot of power in the city's hands to determine how that land will be developed. What's on the screen right now is just a quick summary of the various parcels that make up the CBW lots at Wonderland. You can see that there's a paper street that establishes a number of potential blocks in here. And this pink line is really what we're starting with, the pink line that's running across the site. It leaves approximately 8 acres, and this is a slightly out-of-date plan. The blue line here shows you about how we might gain a little space. We might get up to about 9.5 acres left, but we're basically looking for this plan to purchase or eminent domain the 26 acres side and leave the 8-acre side for private development by someone else. This total cost scenario at Wonderland will be flushed out a bit by the time it comes back here, but baseline scenario, the city is making about $500,000 off of that site right now. We're going to work with the city to preview what a case 1, case 2, and case 3 scenario of private development would yield tax-wise down there. Case 1 is 80% commercial, 20% residential. That's what's preferred by the city, as commercial attracts jobs. A 50-50 scenario, which is similar to how the Suffolk Downs is getting developed. We're going to mock up potential tax revenue for that. And then an 80-20 scenario, which is similar to Waterfront Square right across the street between the beach and Wonderland. We'll have those numbers for the building committee on January 6th, and we'll put them in front of you folks at the next meeting. Bottom is sort of what we're proposing here for the school. We're carrying $23 million as the land acquisition value for that, the acreage that we need to put the school there. There's a lot of thinking that went into that, and appraisal. We've been working with an appraiser too to come to that value. And we would basically be, that would leave 8 acres that, if the city allowed to be developed similar to Waterfront Square right across the street, could yield $5 million in taxes annually. That could pay for the land acquisition at $23 million in 4 to 5 years. And it could put the tax revenue, if that 8 acres were developed as close to in tandem with the high school as possible, could put the yield on that site over the 30-year span of school borrowing somewhere between 128 to 177 million, as compared to Wonderland now with the $500,000 tax yield. Real quick, trying to get to the end. I know you folks have a lot going on tonight, but this is a schedule summary just for reference. Again, the schedules are neutral. Move into new facility summer 2026 for all of them. They vary a little bit differently depending on the baggage of that site, but I don't think anyone should necessarily be choosing or advising to choose an option based on the schedule. Think of other things like building on Wonderland and the single shot versus that phased approach I went through at the existing site. Costs real quick here. So what you see here is a summary budget. These are not based on detailed estimates of each site. We're comparatively putting values on the various options and running through which sites have what type of baggage. Again, remember what I said earlier about reimbursement. Site work is not reimbursed anywhere near 100%. Land acquisition is not reimbursed at all. So you can see the $23 million plug in this first line for Wonderland. There is no acquisition value for the option 1CB, which is all new and existing, and 1AB, which is that keep the field house. Base repair option over on the left. You can, long story short, see comes out to a $181 million project with a projected $76.8 million MSBA grant, making the cost of Revere about $104 million. That's, again, baseline must be studied scenario, does not address any curriculum issues, does not address expansion of that building. It just needs to stay on as an option. The existing all new site right now is coming out to about $409 million, $163 million potential MSBA grant, $245 million price tag to Revere. About $7 million less, the way reimbursement works out, is the option to keep the field house, and about $14 million more is the current option for Wonderland. We are going to break down these numbers, including a more detailed explanation of these, why aren't these 70 or 80%, these reimbursements, for the next meeting. But as I noted earlier in this meeting, with the MSBA's revised caps and reimbursement tallies that were revised in July, about half is what we're seeing you yield. And the numbers that we ran on this job are showing that. The effective reimbursement rate, total project value, divided by what the MSBA might give us, is closer to a range of 40%. But again, we'll break that down in a lot more detail. We are confident that by the January time where we're picking one of these, we can get all these options under 400 million as well. We always start at our most conservative position, and as we know more and more, we can get more accurate. So we think all these options will be under a total project of 400 million, and the cost of Revere is going to be somewhere in that 230 to 250 range after reimbursement. Real quick, what's on the screen right now is a quick summary of positives and advantages, strengths, and disadvantages, challenges. The first all-new build on Aracola Park is just about the most cost-effective option. All existing traffic routes are maintained. It is the most pedestrian and bike-friendly location. It's located within the heart of the community. Redeveloping Aracola Park and Ambrose Field would come along with that. And also, the culvert that runs through this site would basically be rebuilt. So one piece of something Revere is going to have to address eventually be done. The negatives are that Article 97 relocation process takes a long time to permit this. Existing building will be demolished, can't be used for future use. It is going to be very disruptive on that site for 4 to 5 years. And there's comparatively less abutters over at Wonderland. Also a negative here is the temporary loss of Aracola in Ambrose Park for 4 to 5 years and complex phasing. Keep the field house here, the benefits are the same as the existing site. It could be viewed as that 10,000 extra square foot in athletics is important, and that freestanding building is better for community access to the athletic space. However, it's a potentially longer schedule. Aracola Park gets split into 2 sides of the field. There's a little bit of a disconnect with reimbursement here because we're doing a partial reno, and the athletic space is disconnected. The real negative here that I forgot to have in this is that a year and a half, 2 years, where you're not going to be able to sustain an athletic program. Last all new at Wonderland, main benefits, existing high school and site is reserved for the potential future use as a middle school and or community center. There is no disruption to the existing delivery of education if we build at Wonderland. Much less disruption to abutters simply because there are less abutters down at Wonderland. We're much more by ourselves. Single phase construction, which those of us who will manage the construction process would appreciate. It's not essential, but it is a lot easier to just put up one fence and build a building and no Article 97 process. Negatives to Wonderland, it is the most costly option. There is loss of potential tax revenues from the city, and there's a little bit more going down there as far as traffic and that we have to figure out. Last slide. Thank you for bearing with us here. This is a summary of what we're going through right now. Up at the top, December 16th, we ran the building committee through this presentation. Tonight is the 21st. Looking for you folks' input. We're going to bring back your input and some of the updates on cost and reimbursement I mentioned at January 6th to the building committee. We're looking to then run the city council through this whole thing on January 10th. We're going to have the third community forum that we will get out there and advertise for on the 12th. January 13th is then the big meeting for the building committee. We're asking the building committee, now that they've heard from us for a long time and they've heard from the school committee and city council, to make a recommendation on the preferred option between the three that we just went through on January 13th. We're looking to come back in front of you on January 18th to get a vote on that preferred option, a support or not support, and then same with the city council on January 24th, support or not support on the option that the building committee recommends to the school committee and city council to vote on. We need to get the project team then needs to get this all buttoned up by March 2nd to submit to the school building authority and proceed into schematic design to support these schedules we've put in front of you. That March 2nd deadline to get this couple thousand page report into the state leads to a May 4th MSBA Board of Directors thumbs up or thumbs down.
Ryan, I can
Looking
hear-
forward
I
to
can
schematic
hear the
design.
hurry in your voice, Ryan, and I think that giving people, we can leave this slide up and let them take a look at it
Sure.
and understand the schedule. I want to make sure that we have time for some questions from the school committee.
Perfect. Thank you, Diane.
Any members have any questions? To Mr. Francie and then Mr. Snella. Mr. Francie, go ahead.
Hey, Brian, you talked about the culvert. Do we have an estimated cost, how much it would be, and how long would it take to move it?
So we do right now, we're talking round numbers. We think that replacement of the culvert, call it the pipe itself, on site is about a $3 million expense that is carried in the numbers. We're also carrying $5 million in addition to the 3 because we think there's a good chance that we're going to need an underground pump station to help the water along out there. So right now that's an $8 million premium built into the numbers on the existing site. If that's the site, we need to do a hydrology report in the spring. That hydrology report might tell us we don't need that underground pump station. So we might ditch the $5 million premium. But right now, $8 million premium, and it means we need to start construction earlier. We would be looking to bid and that work out to some subcontractors based on about the design development set of drawings. So we'd be bidding that early, getting in the ground early compared to when we'd be getting in the ground in Wonderland to move that. So it is built into the schedule, it is built into the cost, but it's a premium on both of them.
And my other question is the Wonderland appraisal that they said you came with a number of 23 million for 25 acres. That seems awful light to me. Just, you know, what's going on in today's market. But the question I really have is, has anybody approached Wonderland and asked them, is the property for sale?
Brian, I can jump in on that one. We have been in active conversations with the owners of Wonderland. They've been apprised of what the city's been looking at. We've had conversations about potential development there. Those have stalled. So as this process has been playing out, we've been in pretty much constant communication with the owners of Wonderland about where we are at each step. So this is no surprise to them, and obviously they're watching pretty carefully to see what comes of all the work that we've done. But yeah, we've had these ongoing conversations about this.
Have they thrown any numbers around that you've already come up with one, or?
We haven't. You know, I think what we're if we're gonna go the route of eminent domain, which is one that we've talked about and that they know about, and one that probably would not be necessarily friendly, but that all depends on the amount of money that we're talking about. So if we get to that point, I think we have to have those conversations. But for us, the process of eminent domain, we have to go through that as a city, which is a little different than a private transaction that would happen otherwise.
My last question, would you be interested, does the city be interested in taking the whole thing or just taking what we need for the school?
So we would consider, no options off the table in terms of Wonderland. Obviously, taking the larger site would take off the table any additional tax revenue coming on board. And one of the calculations and one of the big pieces of this is if we take the potential development off of the rolls for the city, right? If off the tax rolls for the city, how does that help us or hurt us in terms of paying for this project? So I think the thinking behind leaving, kind of breaking down the parcel and saying 8 acres will be available for redevelopment is also essentially a sweetener in terms of the eminent domain, and perhaps could make that a little bit more friendly than what it may otherwise be.
Would there be restriction on those 8 acres, what they could build there, or would it have to be strictly commercial?
So that would have to be, that would go through a zoning and special permit process, right? But I think what we could enter into, and I think have a community discussion about, is what is, the trade-off in terms of using that site, what works with a high school, what has some kind of natural synergy between the two sites. Obviously, we don't want to, put a warehouse necessarily or something like that, but something that works with a high school could make sense on those 8 acres.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Ferranti, and then Ms. Ty. Apologies, Mr. Sinella. Mr. Sinella, then Ms. Ty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is Mr. Dakin still on board?
Yep, they're still on.
Yep.
Mr. Dakin, a couple of questions regarding the high school site. Has there been any, has anyone looked back on preparation for the high school? At one time, it was the dumping ground for most of Scholar Square and the West End. I was chairman of the Parks and Recreation when we discussed Ericola Park being part of the high school, and it wasn't an easy task at the time, the way the deed or something was worded for Ericola Park. My understanding is that the borings and site to hold a building is not that good. So that's why I'm asking, number one, has anyone looked into the site preparation back, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago?
We did look back, and the design team took a little bit look back on some of those reports, but we feel it's feasible to build out there. We do think that we'll be getting pretty far down into that ground, both for underground parking and to get this building. As Don mentioned earlier, our main driver on where this building sits in the land is the tidal floodplain, and we're really having to pick the building up over the ground. This isn't really going to be nestled in the ground. It's going to have to sit pretty high. So we would have to figure out exactly what some of these premiums might be. Right now, we're covering that site work with a $7.5 million premium based on what's there underground and what we're going to have to do with it to handle stormwater and the foundation. So we feel that based on some of the research we've done there, we're kind of penalizing that site for the baggage that you've mentioned. But if that site is chosen, there will have to be additional borings and analysis to sort of vet out whether that premium we've carried is appropriate.
Well, originally that was the clay pit. There was a brickyard there. And there was a connection, a culvert going under the highway to where the town dump was, where Necco was. And the drainage was nigh on to impossible. Now, you're talking about moving or changing the culvert. Now, on the other side of North Shore Road, you have the county ditch and you have floodgates. So I don't think that this is going to be an easy solution to take care of on the site without bringing everything in until the water drains back out into the ocean. Going back to Aracola Park, I understand that they're slated for a major makeover within the next, Brian can probably answer that, the next 6 months, in the tune of $400,000 to $500,000. It's Aracola Park.
Ambrose, I think.
No, Aracola Park is original, they call it Ambrose Park, but on the deed, it's Aracola Park.
Agreed. Yep.
Okay, I mean, so, again, is the city gonna go ahead with, I guess it's funding by some source, and build a park for $500,000 and then have to dig it back up again?
The goal is no, and I actually, I've been hooked up with a few folks in City Hall that I think know that potential upgrade better than I do. What we're trying to do is stay out of that project's way. We would need to take over, call it the infield and a little bit of the outfield on the Ambrose field on the north of RMA, which I agree is still Aracola Park. I think, if I'm not mistaken, most of the funds and the upgrades are focused on amenities there and the playground. So we would work out so that there wasn't redundancy there, and the city wasn't putting something in place that the project would then come in and have to uproot. But we are aware of there being some slated upgrades in the Aracola Park area, and we'll design our project to work around them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just an observation about previous building experiences. When we were building the Remy Marsh, and talking about the culvert, Fred, when we were building Remy Marsh, the culvert the two pieces of the culvert did not meet. And then it had been in there for so many years that it was like that. And I worry about what that land can sustain, can accommodate there, because like Mr. Sinella, I remember when it was a clay pit and all the junk went in there and all of the problems that happened. Now, I'm sure that that culvert was fixed afterwards, but the fact that it had deteriorated to the point where it didn't even meet with the water that was coming down off the hill and going under the road, then that's really worrisome to me. The second problem I worry about is the nightmare traffic at Wonderland. It's bad enough there. I mean, maybe if we had a commuter rail, maybe some of the traffic wouldn't be coming across Revere, but that's a whole federal problem. I know that our Representative Clark has been working on that. I know City Councilor John Powers has been working on that, but I still think that the traffic of going in and out of there, I mean, tonight was a nightmare traffic coming into the high school, and I just see nightmare traffic all the time going through that particular site. So I'm just concerned about a traffic study and what the implications of that will mean to us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, Mr. Bartolisi?
You're welcome.
Whoever you are.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Dakin? None at this time? Dr. Kelly?
So I just want to thank everybody from Perkins Eastman and Left Field for the presentation tonight. It was a great job, and we really appreciate all of your hard work. And I think I see Mrs. Rizzo has a hand up, and I think that's a new one. Do you want to?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kelly. It was new. First of all, I mean, traffic nowadays, it doesn't matter if you're going to Broadway or you're going to Wonderland Circle, the traffic is just horrific everywhere. But more importantly, I just want to say, to be working with this group of people, Left Field, Perkins Eastman, it's just been a phenomenal experience. I know I've learned so much, and their education and their knowledge and professionalism has made me comfortable with their suggestions. And that's with a huge shout out to Brian Dakin also. It's just been an amazing time working with all of them. They tolerated any of my stupid questions, and I can't thank them enough. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Dr. Kelly, you want to continue with the superintendent's report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ferranti. I'll say goodnight to our friends, and we'll see you after the new year. Enjoy the holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks. Happy holidays.
And I am going to bring up our team from the Remy Marsh Academy. We have 2 of our Remy teachers, Ryan Donovan and Tia Brown, who are here with 4 of their students. And they are going to speak to the school committee tonight about their Civics Action Project and some of the work that they have been doing on that and in their deeper learning experience. And also with them tonight, who I am bringing up is Principal Heather Bobb. So let me just see here.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Kelly. I'm delighted to be able to highlight the work of our students. We do have 3 8th grade civics teachers. We invited the teachers that match the students that are presenting here tonight. So we have Miss Tia Brown and Mr. Ryan Donovan. Missing is Lauren Hurt, who is our 3rd civics teacher, who these students do not have. So we've been doing a lot of work with deeper learning at the Remy Marsh Academy. We worked in collaboration with the Kaleidoscope Collective through DESE, and we've carried that work on. And this sort of folded nicely into that through the leadership of the teachers. And it really speaks to the need that we have for students to have an equitable experience and really produce authentic work as they master content by taking ownership of their learning and taking some initiative. So with that, I am going to turn it over to the team.
And I'm going to drive the slides from here, Ryan, so you just let me know with a next slide or move on. Same for the students. When you need me to advance the slide, just give me a shout out.
Thank you. So with the Civics Action Project and the Civics curriculum, it offers plenty of deeper learning opportunities for the students, but this one I think is especially good for them because it's very student-led and student-driven. It goes on for like the whole year. And it's not something that just RMA has been focusing on. This has evolved for the past 4 years that I've been here to what it is now. A lot of 8th grade teachers, coaches, and admin have helped get this project to where it is today. And we're definitely excited for students like the 3 that we have with us and the other students we have at RMA and across Revere to help us get this project to the next levels and to help us make changes in the community that they recognize as students. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Brown.
Hi there, can I be heard clearly? All right, good. Like Mr. Donovan mentioned, this is a student-driven project, and we've been just thoroughly impressed with the students' level of engagement this year, especially when we compare it to last year. Our remote year, it's just been really nice to see the students engaged. Another thing that's different this year is that they're focusing on local issues. We've kept it local, and I see that benefiting the students in 2 different ways. One, they're gonna hopefully see that change right in front of them, something that they can touch, see, whether it's here in Revere or even the state of Massachusetts. We're looking for them to make a change that is local to them. And then there's also exposure to you and other people in the city that are local leaders, and who knows, maybe they'll be filling one of these local leadership roles in the future. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to Ada Luwadi, Vincenzo Palermo, and Julia Figueroa.
Hi everyone, I'm Ada Luwadi, and I'm going to start off by telling you guys our introduction. So this year, our May, we are taking on the Civics Action Project. The Civics Action Project is the year-long project for students of the 8th grade. In this project, students pick an issue in their community and try to change it for the better. And in our civics class, we learn what our duties and responsibilities we have as citizens are. This project shows how we can be responsible citizens and how we can get involved in our community. And I'll pass it to Vincenzo.
Hi, I'm Vincenzo Palermo. I'm going to talk about the steps we take. The first one is we understand who we are as citizens and what communities we are part of. We are students of the RMA, so we are in that community, and all three of us are in a club called the Hawk Helpers, so we are in that community as well. Then we speak to our classmates to figure out what communities they're in, and we speak to our parents and neighbors to determine what issues are important to them. Then we have a lot of issues that we look at, and we pick a few that are very important to us, and we see what other people are focused on as well.
My name is Julia Figueroa. I'm going to talk about solidifying the issue. So after we talked, we decided on the issues we wanted to work on, and then we had a class discussion. In these discussions, we debated and explained why we thought we should focus on certain issues. We then chose our topic and broke out into small groups with common topics.
So step 3 of the project is outreach. So we researched and learned about the different branches of state and local government to see which branch would be most beneficial for our research. And then after finding out which department and who to reach out to, we brainstormed questions to ask our allies in this project. Most students reached out to people in the city school departments because students felt it held more value to our research than the other departments.
After we email the people that are the head of our issue, we get their perspective on the topic, and then our teachers organize face-to-face meetings with the larger group of students to hear more, so they can hear more of our ideas and to answer our questions.
Our next steps is after these meetings, we will solidify our goal and specific change we'd like to make by conducting research specific to our topics. We will look at the historical context of our topics, influential change makers who have previously or are currently working on the topics, and statistics to support our specific goals. We will determine our best strategy to obtain our goal. This may include educating others, advocating for policy change, or encouraging better use of community budgets. Our project will build up to a National Civics Day where we can present and reflect on our hard work.
And as we're working on the grading policy, other issues that students in our school and our communities are working on are littering, where students have realized that Revere is polluted and the littering is a problem, especially when the city is next to the ocean. Students are working also on student lunch, as they've seen it has negative impact and they've had negative experiences with school lunch. For example, its nutrition, its options, and its quantities. Uniforms, many students would like to wear their own clothes and not have to live by a strict dress code in schools. Mental health, students are very aware of their own mental health and would like more opportunities to address and work on their issues during the school day. And lastly, student choice, where students would love to be able to have a say in what elective classes they take in.
Civics Action Project Impact. Each of these stages we will work on throughout the year will help us better understand what goes into decision making in our community and how cause and effect takes place during the process. Each individual stage helps us understand more about our topic and see what we can do to find our more and expand how we can make a change. The skills we have learned so far and will continue to learn throughout this journey will help us develop skills for the future that will help us contact people of higher power for information and help, as well as taking evidence from different sources and connecting it, and even seeing that change can be made with the correct plan.
We are hoping to make a difference in our community for this year's CAP project that will not only help us now but in the long run and also help future generations. We strive to see change for the benefit of our community and to better our future generations and classes.
Okay, at this time, are there any questions for the students for the Remy Marsh? None? Oh, very good. Go ahead, Ms. Stein.
So when do you expect to finish this project? By the end of the year? And second question I have is, have you also, since I know that all of the schools are doing it, do you exchange information with any of the other schools to compare what conclusions you have come to and what would work best for your school? And might you consider doing that if you haven't already?
So yeah, the end of the project will be at the end of the year. That's when we'll probably finish it. We don't personally do it in class, but I have talked to my friends about what issues they're doing, and they are doing like school lunch and uniforms and stuff like that that are in different schools.
Well, good job.
Anybody else? Ms. Guavalisi?
First of all, I just want to say great job. We really do enjoy getting the emails and the questions. You know, I hope that we didn't miss some of the emails because that does happen sometimes, but we do try to work collaboratively. I know you've worked with Cheryl Cole and have spoken to her about the school lunches, and these are all great topics that we are looking forward to an update at the end of the year on the results of your project. So we will be looking for that in June for you to keep us posted.
And I look forward to visiting the Remy Marsh. I know I've been working with Mr. Donovan and Ms. Brown and Mrs. Bob to schedule a time to come over in early January and answer any additional questions that that students have.
Everybody all set? All right, guys, thank you very much. Great presentation. Keep up
Thanks,
the good
everyone.
work.
Sorry for keeping you all up so late.
All right, thank you.
Good job. All right.
Okay, so Dr. Kelly, the last party superintendent's report.
Yes, and with us tonight is our Director of English Language and World Language Programs, Jennifer Labolita, who you all met last summer when she came on board. And just before she starts, she has a presentation of all of the work that she's been engaged in the last 4 months. And just before she starts, I want to just take a minute to say it's amazing. And I think Lorenzo could probably speak to this as well as I could. The transformative change that we've already seen. We knew when we made the decision to create this position and separate it from the Parent Information Center, that was because we knew it was a full-time job and needed full attention. And Mr. Mogavero at the time decided to retire, but it really is a huge, huge, huge job. And part of what Jennifer's going to do tonight is talk about some additional staffing positions for down the road that she anticipates that we'll need. But I wanted to say thank you for really turning your attention to our English learner students in particular, our World Languages program as well, bringing on the Seal of Biliteracy. I could go on and on and on with everything that you've done, leading us all the way through a comprehensive review from the Department of Education. It's been wonderful to have you here, so thank you. And I'll bring up your presentation as you say hello.
Thank you so much. And without further introduction, you took the bar so high now. So, the Tracy is a school committee member, Dr. Kelly, who's like the first meeting on learning here.
Oh, yeah.
What's the
Elmi can show you, maybe show you. Can you put the mic on? There you go. Good job, Carol.
Oh, there we go. Perfect, thank you. So thank you again for that lovely introduction. School committee members, Dr. Kelly and Dr. Garcia, it is my great pleasure to be here with you tonight to talk a little bit about what we've been working on in the few months that I've joined us, our needs as a department, and the vision that we have for the future. And I recognize that I put a lot of information in the slides, so I will not be touching on everything, but feel free to ask questions if there's areas of concern. And of course, I'm always happy to come back or address at length other issues. Okay. So here is our department. Many of us are new, and I join a phenomenal team of world language educators and English as a second language teachers, as well as paraprofessionals, and we are currently interviewing for our first language development coach, which we'll talk more about. So many of the next slides talk about the children and families that we are so blessed to serve. You can see we are an extremely diverse district with almost 60 languages represented and over 60 countries where our families come from. For our English learners, now this data was December 1st, and that number was 1860, and we are currently at 1938. And we've assessed over 620 students since July. So the number itself doesn't really demonstrate the amount of new families as obviously other families leave. But it takes quite a bit to welcome, register, assess, and support our newest families. And then of course you can see our world language offerings at the high school. We have Spanish, French, and Italian. So some highlights of our enrollment. As you heard, we are approaching 2,000 English learners, and that would be the highest number that we've ever had here in Revere. We have the 13th largest number of L's in the state, and we are one of the highest percentages in the state of districts with families that speak other languages at home. We are nearing 70% of our families. So Spanish has actually overtaken English as the primary language in our district. So you can see these next slides that just demonstrate some of the statistics I just shared, longitudinally going back almost 30 years, and all of this information is from the state website. So you can see our percentage at the time that I had done this was nearing 26%, and now we're nearing 27%. So that growth of students is also represented in that growth of the percentage of our students in the district. And then you can see that we are nearing 2,000 students, which is a dramatic increase over the last years.
I'm just pointing to this spot for the committee to show this is 2009, 2010. So 11, 12 years ago, we were at 10% of English learner students, and we're now up in the mid-20s. So it's been a huge increase in just the last 10 years.
So the following charts show the breakdown by school. And so even though we are 26, 27% as a district, especially our elementary schools, more than 1 out of every 3 children is a current English learner. And some of our schools, as you can see, are nearing 40%. And some of those grade levels, like kindergarten, are nearly 50%. So nearly 1 out of every 2 children is learning English in our kindergarten classrooms. Of highlight of note are Garfield Elementary School, which is well over 300, and here at the high school we'll be at 350 in probably a couple days. Yes, please continue. Okay, so the next slides are some of the priorities that my department and I are working on. So we'll touch on the compliance. There's quite a bit similar to special education with plans and forms and documents and lots of things that we need to demonstrate to the state that we're doing and we're communicating with our families. I'm responsible for all of the program vision, development, oversight, the plans for where we're going, along with all of our colleagues and stakeholders and families. We work to provide curriculum, instruction, and assessment for all ESL and world language programs, but also our SEI programs, where our students are learning the content with their classroom teachers. I work to support school administrators with the hiring and professional development and growth of all of our educators. As I mentioned, we're assessing all of our students at the Parent Information Center as they arrive and welcoming them. And it's been an amazing partnership, starting to grow with the family liaisons and really working to develop more information and support for our newest families. So that said, I'm working to coordinate family engagement opportunities and strengthen our LPAC, which is our English Learner Parent Advisory Council. We are working on bylaws and hoping to hold elections in the coming school year. We had our first meeting in November, and for our virtual meeting, it was well attended. Lots of ideas from our families, so I'm really excited to partner with them and provide support. And then, of course, we'll be discussing the state seal of biliteracy in a little bit, which I'm very excited about starting here. Okay. And then, of course, there's federal funds and grants and communication. We have a new website, and I've revised with our communications coordinator our pages there, so I hope in the future, when I have a little bit more time, there'll be a great resource for everyone.
Do you want me to pop to that and they can see quickly, or?
You are very welcome to.
Okay. See, since you conveniently put the link there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then you can see there's the side tabs there, and we just added today some information on the seal of biliteracy, which we'll talk about. Great. And that is what it looked like on the bottom half of my face.
Now I got to figure out how to get back. Oh, look at how easy that was. Yeah. Okay.
This is not coming out of my time, I'm just saying.
Yeah, no. You're good.
So I'd love to demonstrate our sheltered English immersion program. That is our current program for educating our English learner students. You can see it's a two-prong approach where we have our content teachers, who at our elementary level are our classroom teachers, our specialists, our special educators. And at the secondary, likewise, our history, our math, etc. teachers. And then alongside our ESL teachers who provide that direct linguistic support for our students. So really it's that partnership of working together where we all meet the needs of our children. So I want to discuss the monitoring process that we have ongoing with DESE. It's an every 6-year process. So in July, we completed our self-assessment. So they check not only our forms and procedures, that we're doing everything that we're supposed to be, but also they review our data, things that we send to them, like our graduation rates, our dropout rates. So unfortunately, we right now are in Tier 3, which is in need of corrective action because of compliance and the outcomes for students. So even if all those documents and forms were all perfect, they're still looking at the outcomes for our English learners and seeing that there's a grave discrepancy between all of our students and our English learners. So you can see in the coming slide, in March there will be, so that first self-assessment was giving them a lot of information. In March they will be coming here, so I'm working with the schools. They'll be touring some of the schools, visiting classes, interviewing myself, principals, teachers, and really getting a picture of what English learner education looks like here. And then by the end of March they've shared that they'll be releasing the report, which will have whatever findings, and then we will be developing an action plan to address those. So I'm happy to come back in April or May to share more about what those findings are and what some of our next steps are, because we're already working to address many of those items. So I hope that we'll be able to put together that action plan in a good time frame. So you can see here, one of the main areas of concern is that L graduation rate. You can see the discrepancy between our English learners and all of our students. And here you can see similar communities around Revere and the difference between our graduation rates for our English learners. So if you go to the next one, you can see. Oh, yeah, please.
I was just gonna, just so that the committee can see.
And it's the orange.
Revere is in the orange here.
Yeah, so you can see we were in the middle and now we're at the bottom.
Yeah, we were in the middle among our colleagues and now we're at the bottom.
Yeah. And if you look at the next page, it has our dropout rate and our 4-year graduation rate. And you can see the vast discrepancy between all students and our English learner students, which ranges, 23%, 31% difference in our graduation rate. So that is some of the data that the state is really concerned about and is of highest priority for us to continue to work towards addressing. So then the next slides, which I won't really touch on now, but the access test is coming up. We'll be sharing information with our families. That is the way that the state measures our students' progress on developing English. And so that is also a metric that they look at. So historically, Revere has done very well compared to the state. But unfortunately with COVID and, the lower testing rates, those numbers have declined. So we hope that this coming year they'll continue to rise. I did want to take some time and talk about the equity audit, which I was really fortunate to be able to join the Equity Advisory Board and Mass Insight over the summer to hear those initial recommendations. And what a wonderful thing to come to Revere having had all of that work done. It was just like a roadmap was handed to me, right? So again, I won't read all of these things, but I just wanted to highlight what I took away. And I feel that the teachers and families and administrators are really feeling that there's been excellence in pockets at the teacher level, but there really hasn't been a consistent vision at the district level and consistent support. So they're saying, yes, we've developed curriculum on our own, but it's been on our own. We haven't had someone to collaborate across the 6 elementary schools, to have structures that work for all of them, to have programmatic support in scheduling and program design. Some statements that the teachers shared: there's not enough focus on EL services. I believe ELD is overlooked. Not much is given to us, almost anything at all. And teachers express concerns about caseloads and instructional sizes that are too large to equitably address each student's needs. And then highlighting that work from DESE that we looked at the dropout rate, the equity audit also highlighted in the last 5 years, ELs have surpassed students with disabilities as the subgroup with the highest dropout rate. They have the lowest overall graduation rate, which has been declining over 5 years. Retention rates for ELs are higher than for non-ELs. Chronic absenteeism has been rising over the past 3 years. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, clearly. Okay, so here in the coming slides, you can see recommendation 1, develop a district-wide approach for fully supporting our English learners from pre-K through 12th grade. So I won't touch on all of these slides, but you can see some of the action steps that we've already put in place to address some of these items.
Did I go too far?
No, you're perfect.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yep. So you can see some of the work that we've done at our PIC Center with our language assessment office, some professional development opportunities that we've started, a book study. Many of our leaders have been taking a MATSL course about leadership for English learners. There's just been such an excitement about these opportunities that is so special. Okay. So you can see also we're working to revitalize the SLIFE program at the high school for our students that are older, that are typically coming at the 9th grade level, but maybe 18 or 19. We are also redoing the high school schedule to have a lot of different pathways and opportunities for kids. So all of these are some of the items that we're starting to work on. I want to highlight 2 exciting opportunities. We have this FIPSI grant with North Shore Community College. It's just a few more slides down.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I had to make the font really big, so it took a lot of slides. So this is a wonderful opportunity. I've been partnering with Diana Finn and the counselors, social workers, and high school ELO to provide more dual enrollment options for our English learners and our recently exited former English learners. So this spring, some students will be taking Intro to Higher Ed and Mathematics Literacy courses at NSCC, and we're working to get some students into the Gateway to College program. And so we've been working with our ESL teachers to align what our ESL courses look like with what their courses look like, so that we can develop future pathways with them to provide more opportunities. And another exciting initiative that we'll be starting is our Seal of Biliteracy. This is a wonderful award that celebrates and rewards multilingualism for our students. So for students that are able to demonstrate a high level of proficiency in English and then an additional language, they can receive a physical seal on their diploma and an award on their transcript. Many colleges actually accept this for credit. I'm excited to partner with Title I, so we'll be offering this opportunity at no cost to the families. And all graduating seniors will be eligible to attempt this award, because it doesn't just have to be a language that you've learned here in school, or if you've come from another country and you've learned English. We know many families take courses at night, and they might be studying Arabic at home. Or many other languages. So it's a real great opportunity to really celebrate and highlight the multilingualism that exists in the community. So DESE just last night changed a little bit of it, so that's why I've been holding off on sharing information with families. So in the new year, I'll be sending out information about how families can sign up so we can coordinate the testing and figure out all the details. In the coming years, I really hope that a vast majority of our graduates receive this honor. So you can see further data on some of the students that we've assessed over the last months. Then I want to take a few minutes to talk about some of the vision for the future. So I've shared a little bit of where we are and some of our areas of growth and our challenges. So I'm working to create a mission and vision for this department. As you saw in that equity audit, people really want to feel connected and they want to feel that we have a common vision together. So working to strengthen ESL world language and our SCI instruction through language development coaching, which is a position that partners alongside our literacy and math coaches, but is focused on language development. And these roles, these teachers would have expertise in working with English learners. I can do so much, but it's not, I can't get into every classroom and provide advice and support and watch the lesson and provide some feedback of next steps and strategies and let me get you this book and let's partner. So that's what the coaching model really does, and in my experience it's just a phenomenal way, because you can take a class for an hour and not get a lot out of it, but when someone comes to your room and shows you and follows up, that's the way that you build capacity, in my opinion. So I'm really excited about looking at that model. Like I discussed, we want to create consistency across our schools, but that there's flexibility, so that a school like the Garfield that might have twice the number of students learning English as another school, we can work on those schedules and different models of instruction. Work on those curriculum and assessments. It should not be all in the teacher's hands, right? Across the 6 elementary schools, we can have common outcomes, and everyone can have different resources and materials to get there. As we discussed, we want to create more opportunities so that we increase that graduation rate and provide pathways for our students. I know Revere in the past had a brief dual language program. I'd love to bring that back. Dual language is where students learn in both English and a partner language. In prior roles, I've had experience developing those programs, and my own child is in one. So it's so exciting to get to see it from both sides. He's in 1st grade, and he's reading completely fluently in Spanish and English. So, and it was the first thing that our families mentioned. They said, other districts have bilingual programs, why don't we? I said, we'll get there. We need to work there. I'd love to expand our world language programs as well. We don't currently offer Portuguese or Arabic, and those are our 2 next highest languages after Spanish. So I'd love to consider ways to add more languages. And that seal of biliteracy is for our seniors, but we can also start awards in 5th and 8th grade to encourage students to continue their bilingualism and celebrate along the way versus just waiting until they graduate. And then I've already discussed with some of our world language teams, they're so excited about potential medical interpretation opportunities or other more advanced electives, so that we, again, encourage our students to continue after the 2nd level of courses into those more advanced levels, to show them this is a professional pathway. You can graduate with skills and then move into career options. So in the staffing, I know there have been positions added, but we are still growing, as you heard. So there still is a need for more teachers. And these numbers are continuing to rise. Typically January and February is the time of great growth. So I'm not 100% sure if these will be the only positions that I'll be advocating for the teachers, but this is a start. Many of these schools are already very high, and this already includes the positions that you so generously advocated for recently, but none of those people have started yet in those roles. So additionally, for the department, as Dr. Kelly shared, I would strongly advocate for an assistant director to work alongside me to accomplish all of these tasks: the compliance, the curriculum, the program development and expansion. And then I'd like to start, we are interviewing now for a secondary language development coach to support our 5 middle and high schools. But I would like in the coming year to add an elementary, and then I could split that secondary into a middle. So we could start with an elementary, middle, and high school coaching team, and then consider in the coming years if that's the model that we would like to follow. So I know that was a lot of things, but thank you so much for giving me this time to present, and I'm happy to take questions.
Is there any questions from the committee?
I just want to,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to, commend the new ELL director for taking on so many initiatives. And obviously, if you see the trajectory of our ELL students in the district, you can clearly see that there is it's increasing every year. And the challenges are there. Challenges for them, challenges for the families. It's structural issues that we have. She came in. If you look through her presentation, you can see some groundbreaking proposals that I've been here for 12 years. I worked as a principal for 8 years at the high school. And the things that she's proposing is truly transformational. There's no doubt about it. And it's supported by the data. It's supported by evidence. What we have is just that, you know, she, you know, I would say, I'm sitting here, I meet with her every week just to go over things, how things are working. You know, we discuss a variety of issues. And she, you know, I would resort and ask our school committee members to really come together and support her. Because when I see a leader like this that's really focuses heavily on family, students, it's not just the work that's taking place at the high school or any other school. She gets it. And the conversation, the deep conversation, it's taking place at the peak with the involvement of the family liaison, with involvement so many head stakeholders to really bring the district at the level that it deserves. We have great workers here and great teachers, but certainly we have structural issues that's here and we need to look into it. And I think she's willing to do it. There's so much that she's bringing, a lot of innovation, a lot of things. I think she should be praised for and supported. I say this as a person who is a second language learner. And you know, the minute I saw her during the interview, I knew that she would be a good leader. And I think that everything she stated here, it's supported by the equity report, it's supported by the data that's coming from the state, it's supported by the street data, which is important, and it's supported by teachers that she's gathering and listening, and it's just amazing. So I just want to congratulate her for all the initiatives she's putting together, because our kids deserve it, and our families deserve it, and the district deserves it. That's all I want to say. Yeah.
Thank you. I just have one question.
Please.
On the last slide, you showed us what the ratio with how many students we have versus ESL teachers versus the average caseload.
Mm-hmm.
I know you need more of everything. What should be the average caseload for each teacher? Because these numbers are in
Right.
the 30s and the 40s in some of them. What should be the average caseload?
So for elementary, I typically like to get into the low 30s or even lower, right? Because it's different than a classroom teacher where you have the same group of 20 to 25 students at a time. Our elementary ESL teachers are frequently moving across the building, working with different teachers, different classrooms, different grade levels. So you'll see that there are many teachers at those elementary schools, but it still is stretching the schedule very thin to have those higher numbers. And also remembering so many of our students are at the developing and beginning levels of language acquisition, so they need more time and more support than in the upper grades as students progress, and then they don't need as much time. So that's why I highlighted Garfield Elementary, Hill, especially as being already at 40 right there, and Garfield was already in the mid-40s when we added an additional position during the school year. So you can see some of them are still pushing 40. So, and then for secondary, it's more challenging because it's about the schedule. Students typically take ESL in place of their English language arts class. So it's again about those proficiency groupings and how the schedule best works. Here at the high school, we've created a very different schedule for the coming year, trying to offer more opportunities for students to have more time, and then working with our shelter teachers to support them in educating our kids. So it's hard to give an exact number for the secondary levels, but it often comes, you realize as you get later in the year and you're trying to work out the schedule, it doesn't work if you don't have enough teachers for those sections.
Thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions for the committee? Thank you. Oh, wait a minute, Ms.
I don't necessarily have a question. Any question I had as you were presenting, it seems like on the next slide you would answer the question that I had. So thank you very much for that thorough report, and just the short amount of time that you've been here, it's amazing what you've already done. I just wanted to say that, like, every question I had was answered by the end. Thank you.
Thank you. It is my great pleasure to work alongside our colleagues here.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Dr. Kelly, does that conclude the superintendent's report?
It does. There's one other thing that I wanted to suggest to the committee, and this is not, we can talk about it tonight if folks want, but I want us to consider the schedule, the school year schedule, and whether or not it's viable to capture the additional student days that we do this, as you know, the state requires that we do 180 student days, but by contract and after some wonderful negotiations that my predecessors did with the teachers union, we actually have 182 student days. But I am becoming concerned, as I think you've all heard across the country, that teachers are incredibly stressed out, and I think part of that has to do with the fact that the kids are really stressed out. And I am thinking, and I know there's been some movement around this in other parts of the state and other parts of the country, if we could capture that time and maybe think about doing some half days. We still need to do the same number of hours. We still need to do 990 hours at the secondary level and 900 at the elementary. So I'm not looking to forgive days. What I would like to do is repurpose some of that time and do half days. And this idea actually came from talking to Dr. Perella after what happened last week with the students at the high school. And we were thinking it would create opportunities not just for teachers to do professional development, that would be some of the work, but also time for students and teachers to engage in ways that are different than they do right now, like not on how to do chemistry or what their math is, but more on the relationship building and how students and teachers can partner together with administrators to foster a kind of building culture where everybody does feel safe and included and heard, and we're not hearing so much about there's a fight in the hallway and there's this and there's that and there's the other thing. And you know, all of the schools have different needs. And I think that giving the kids and the teachers and the administrators the time to do some of that work and do some of the social emotional learning that we've been talking so much about would be beneficial to everybody in the late winter or early spring. And that's why I'm not looking for this decision to be made right now. I think we have some time to think about it. I think the March, when we have that long stretch of no vacation time from February to April, might be a good time for us to look at it. But I wanted to seed that idea with the committee tonight so that you'd all have time to think about it and talk to your constituents and see what people think of that. And other than that, I have nothing else.
The only question, Dr. Kelly, I have with that, would that be for all the schools, or are you just targeting a specific, like elementary or middle school?
I think it would be for all of the schools. I think there's different things that we could do at every single level that would really help us do some work around building the relationships and relieving some of the pressure. Like I feel like the school district is just in a pressure cooker, and one thing is going to go and, you know, it's going to be a problem. We've all heard a lot from parents about the anxiety that kids are experiencing and the perception that there is a lot of strife happening in the schools. We know our staff are stressed and trying to manage with a lot of different things, and we see in their attendance rates that they're stressed. And, you know, that has kind of like a cyclical effect. If teachers are out and we don't have enough subs, then the teachers who are left are having to hold everything up. Then they become more stressed and more tired, and I think it's something that we should really think about, creating a little bit of release for everybody.
Sounds like a good idea.
If I may,
Ms. Stein?
Mr. Chairman, I think that's an excellent idea. There's all kinds of education, and it doesn't have to be a day when everybody's in class and doing, you know, math or English or whatever. And I can see the crying need when I get calls from parents it's seldom now on their grades or any of that. Now it's how stressed out they are in school. And I'm sure that as I kept getting yes and agreement from my partner at this side of me, then I certainly would be really, I mean, not just amenable, but really very happy to participate in finding a schedule that we could work with. And I think your suggestion about the half days is really a good one.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Well, I think we'll talk about that in the near future. Okay, next on the agenda is hearings. I see none. Next is report of subcommittees. Safety and Security Subcommittee, Ms. Grevelisi.
Thank you, Mr. Ferranti. I'll try to make this as brief as possible. Although we did cover a lot during our Safety and Security Subcommittee meeting. The Safety and Security Subcommittee met on December 14th. Members in attendance were myself, Mr. Sinella, and Ms. Ty, also Ms. Rizzo, and members-elect John Kingston and Aisha Milbury-Ellis. The first agenda item we discussed were fire drills. Dr. Gallucci updated us on the progress that was made in the process during the October fire drill. There are two standards that are measured during the fire drills. They are evacuation and accountability. As far as evacuation, they strive for a 4 to 6 minute time to evacuate. Some schools did report that the times were a little more lengthy, and they attribute that to lack of practice due to not being in school for that length of time during COVID. The second standard is accountability. The goal is to have everyone out of the building and accounted for within 5 minutes time. And I have to say kudos to Captain Fortuna and Dr. Gallucci for doing such a great job. They have been working on this since about 2019 to decrease the accountability time. So within a matter of 5 minutes, they know where every student is when they are out of the building. The second item that we had talked about during that meeting were recommendations from Jonathan Ferrara for additional cameras in areas of different schools that are uncovered, as well as updates and repairs. He did go over a list. We had gone over it at our 5 o'clock meeting. He recommended in total, district-wide, for an additional 44 cameras, which would include 14 to 16 at the high school, 5 at the Hill School, 7 at the Garfield, 8 at the Beachmont and Seacoast School, and 8 at the Lincoln. So we are hoping that those recommendations by Jonathan Ferraro will be approved at a motion that is later in this meeting. The third agenda item we talked about, Dr. Kelly shared some increased strategies that schools have been implementing to secure the schools a little more, not just ground safety, but also cyber and security and internet safety, as we talked about even earlier in the meeting today. They have been working on that throughout all the schools. They do have some of their security staff that may have safety and security talks about cyber internet security with their students, as well as their security staff being more mobile during the day and checking all the hallways and doorways. Dr. Gallucci also updated the committee on an internet and social media workshop that was presented to the students at the Hill School. It's not a specific workshop for Revere, but they did talk to the presenter to see if it would be available for all families. It was called Stop, Block, and Talk, and it was all about internet safety. So that was great information that Dr. Gallucci had talked to us about. The last topic that we talked about at that meeting is the possibility of having a parent and student workshop or forum. Basically, the premise of this would be see something, say something. A lot of times we do notice that we have maybe our own child or our child's friend, or if I'm a student, one of my classmates may seem to be in distress or have some behaviors that are, out of character. So we were discussing the possibility of having a workshop that would give parents information. You know, if you see these behaviors, who do you contact? Who in your school, who's your principal, who's your guidance counselor, who's the adjustment counselor? So these are all just different resources that would be available to parents and students for information of who they could contact if they felt that, you know, they knew somebody that was in distress, one of their classmates or one of their children. So this is something that could be a school and a community involvement discussion. We could also have community resources available for families, just information. It will be an information session. So we are hoping to work with Dr. Kelly and Mayor Arrigo, hopefully at the beginning of the year, to have this forum come to fruition. And that is the end of the Safety and Security Subcommittee.
Thank you for that thorough report, Ms. Gravellisi.
And it was fast. So
Yeah.
I spoke on super speed.
Good job. Any questions for the report?
We had a very good meeting, and it was very productive under your leadership, and you gave a very good report.
Thank you, Ms.
Make the
Chad.
motion, I'll second it.
Well, we got motions coming up.
Oh, okay.
It's actually in the motions tonight about approving the additional cameras. I just
Okay.
mentioned that it will be coming soon. Thank you.
Okay. Next thing we have is motions. The first motion is to approve the request for a solar source lock and bar equipment on the bid for the Beachmont Boiler Acceleration Repair Project. Also, there's a letter from our Director of Facilities and Maintenance. I'll read it real quickly to whom may concern. Our office determined that the domestic hot water system equipment from the boiler replacement project at the Beachmont Veterans Memorial School in Revere be specified as a propriety item. The domestic hot water boiler and tank should be manufactured by Lockbar. The city currently utilizes Lockbar gas-fired condensed boilers with 2 standalone 100-gallon tanks as a standard at 5 out of 8 of our facilities. It would be in the best interest of the city of Revere to expand the continuity of this system for the ease in use and familiarity, as well as preventive maintenance and training procedures. If you have any questions or concerns regarding this matter, please contact our office at your earliest convenience, Hoyle House, Swenson.
So move the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We need a roll call? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo? Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi?
Yes.
Mr. Sinella?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo?
Next, a motion by Ms. Susan Gravellisi to approve recommendations to repair/replace broken and failing security cameras.
Second?
Roll call.
Mr. Bronson Rizzo? Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi?
Yes.
Mr. Sinella?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo?
Next, motion by Ms. Susan Gravellisi to approve the recommendation for additional security cameras in multiple schools for added coverage.
Second?
Roll call.
Mr. Bronson Rizzo? Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi?
Yes.
Mr. Sinella?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo?
Next, a motion to approve Lincoln Windows. Quick synopsis on this. We received something today. Right now, the budget is about $3.6 million. If we get the 76% reimbursement, we get 2.7, so it costs the city around $1 million on it. It's something that's long overdue. My question to Dr. Kelly is, how many windows do we have any idea we're looking at?
I don't have a specific number, but I can tell you that the project involves replacing every single window in the building.
And do we have a time frame that we figure it would take?
So this would still need to have final approval by the MSBA, so we're a little bit further behind in this project than we were in the Beachmont boiler project. So we anticipate that the window project wouldn't start until the summer of 2023. So not this summer coming, but the summer after that. Some of that's also impacted by the supply chain issues that we've been dealing with all along. Right now, glass prices are exorbitantly high because it's hard to get. And so that's something that we'll take into account and make sure that we're being fiscally responsible before we start the work.
Roll call, please.
Michael?
Yes, Mr. Sinella?
Just a point, Diane, through you, well, I'll have to ask you, you're here. The windows for years have been X, Y, and Z. Now, are they gonna be cut out completely because there was asbestos? And so the placement window will be a little larger than what's there because they're taking out the side pieces and everything with it, to your knowledge?
And I did see rough draft designs of them, to be honest with you. I can get that information for you and present it at the next meeting.
I mean, because this was concern why it got
Yeah.
stalled over years, everything, I mean, they should have been in years ago, Michael, you know that, and I know that, and we all do, but to do it and to do it correctly, I think that's our major concern, that, not somewhere down the line it's gonna fall out, or they're gonna say they can't do it. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and what I can do, Mr. Sinella, is have Carl Svensson come and talk, and I know we looked at preliminary diagrams already, and he'll be able to speak more specifically to that. And so what I would ask for the motion is that you vote on the total estimated grant cost of $2,638,239. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm giving the estimated grant, you're right, thank you.
It should be
Fred.
2.7.
Well, the 2.7 is what the city would end up paying, but the actual total project budget is the,
3.6.
yes, if you could vote that.
Okay, so we're gonna make a motion to approve the Lincoln windows at $3,639,790.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Sanala?
With pleasure, yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Okay, next motion. Motion to approve a memorandum of agreement between the Revere School Committee and the Revere Federation of Paraprofessionals.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo? Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Sanala?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Next motion, to encumber $21,000 for invoice 12 for Left Field LLC, October 2021 professional services. Need a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Sanala?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Next, motion to approve payment of invoice 12 for Left Field LLC, October 21 professional services.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Sanala?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Motion to encumber $38,692.50 for invoice 878970.00/08 for Perkins Eastman Architects DPC for November 2021 professional services.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Sanala?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Next one, motion to approve payment of invoice 879970 for Perkins Eastman Architects DPC, November 2021 professional services.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sanella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Rigo.
Next, motion to encumber
Michael,
35,300.
excuse me a minute, point of information through you to the superintendent.
Sure, Mr. Sinella.
What's this here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Sniller is just showing me the Honeyman Appraisal and Consulting Services, which was a subcontractor for Left Field, who did the appraisals of all of the land over at Wonderland in order to share with the city.
Why are we paying for it?
Well, we are voting to approve the payment to Left Field, and this is part of what the services are, of what they're, through the school building.
Right, through the school
Funding.
building.
This will be built?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, all of this is through the school building fund, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Did I already read the J?
You're only a J? Oh, gosh.
Okay. Motion to encumber 35,300 for invoice 13 for Left Field LLC, November 2021 professional services.
So moved. Second?
Roll call.
Mr. Bronson Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sanella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Rigo.
Motion to approve payment of invoice 13 for Left Field LLC, November 2021 professional services. Roll call.
Mr. Bronson Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sanella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Rigo.
Motion to encumber $28,140 for invoice 87970 for Perkins Eastman Architects, DPC, November 2021 professional services.
So moved. Second?
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sanella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Rigo.
Motion to approve payment of invoice 879970 for Perkins Eastman Architects, DPC, November 2021 professional services.
So moved. Second?
Roll call.
Mr. Bronson Rizzo, Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sanella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Rigo.
All right, we have three more late motions that Ms. Gravellisi will read.
Okay, the first late motion is to approve the superintendent's recommendations of blocking all social media sites on school-issued devices.
So moved.
Second?
We should do a roll call.
Yes.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sanella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Rigo.
Okay, the second late motion is recommendations made by Athletic Director Frank Shea to limit the amount of spectators at all athletic games to 2 spectators per athlete, and spectators being either a parent or a caregiver.
So moved.
Can you have a little explanation of that?
Oh, you weren't here, sorry.
You were stuck in traffic, yeah. So we discussed at the committee of the whole meeting, the increase in positivity rate, especially with Omicron, is causing athletic directors across the state to reconsider convening large groups indoors for winter sports. And so there are a number of districts that are doing different things. Somerville, for example, is going to one end of the spectrum and saying no spectators at all. And others are allowing, for example, only students and parents. And Mr. Shea's recommendation, after consulting with his counterparts in the Greater Boston League, is that we allow, as Mrs. Gravelisi mentioned, 2 guests per athlete who need to be parents or caregivers.
Okay. And are we checking that if they were vaccinated or not?
No.
We're not, no.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
Did we
Roll call.
second? Okay.
I heard Michael say so moved, but I didn't hear a second.
Second? Oh, I can't, yeah. No, I made the motion.
Substitute motion that no visitors be allowed. Make it easier to keep tabs on who, what, when, where, and how.
So moved.
So Fred would have made the motion.
Motion,
Right.
Michael seconded.
I second. Carol, I think the only thing is he's just trying to prevent nobody but the parents or the caretakers to show up to the games.
Right.
Oh, I didn't understand that was your motion.
No, Fred wants to have nobody show up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't hear anything being
No,
discussed.
we didn't have our mics on, we're sorry. The conversation we had before Carol came in was that accusations were made in the past that people were coming in because they knew somebody, they opened the door and others came in, how come they came in, I can't come in?
What?
This way here,
I get it.
if there's no adults, just players, and that would be for visiting team also. It would make it a lot easier rather than have the athletic director having a checklist. So you came into this game, I checked you off, wait a minute, you only got one more coming, let's see. I just think it's a burdensome task. This way, if there's no spectators, which I think it's gonna come to that eventually. Thank you.
Right, it may come to that eventually, but these recommendations were by the athletic director for the 2. Those were the recommendations. We're trying to update Carol. The recommendations by Frank Shea was to have 2 spectators. That would be parent or caregiver, and those were his recommendations, what he wanted to do for our students to continue to have a little bit of normalcy in their life until maybe there might be a point in time.
Point of information, Carol, also it was mentioned that it is on YouTube, and it is, the athletic director is reaching out to our local cable to have all games televised, so the parents or whomever wish to see can see the game, maybe not physically.
Okay, so Mr. Sinella made the motion.
I second, so you have to vote on the substitute motion.
Okay, are we ready to vote on the substitute motion, or Carol, did you need more content because you weren't here?
No, I really need more time to think about this, and maybe like to talk to Frank about it as well.
Well, these were his recommendations that he brought to us for tonight.
And I will say that he is seeking to implement these when we come back from vacation. So
Right.
notifications need to be made. We can't wait to decide in January, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's a little bit timely, and I guess I completely understand Mr. Sinella's argument, and I agree that it would be easier for the staff to have just nobody allowed in, because they wouldn't have to track anything. But I do remember the pleas of parents from last year, when we said no one was allowed, no observers, and we were televised then, and still parents felt like they were missing out on rites of passage for their children, especially if they were senior athletes and it was going to be their last season. And I believe that it was at their appeal that the school committee changed the policy to allow a limited number of spectators per athlete.
And that was under Frank Shea's recommendations, I believe.
It was, and I don't think that Mr. Sneller is wrong. It could be that we're headed in a direction that there's no guests allowed at all.
Right.
But
We might.
right now, what Mr. Shea is urging the committee do is pass this vote that allows for 2 parents or caregivers per athlete to attend.
Dr. Kelly, would this be effective immediately or the first of the year?
Those are kind of the. Yeah, he does want it effective immediately, but we don't have a lot of games scheduled because the kids are gonna be on vacation next week, so.
All right, if I may, the point was mentioned that there would be no checking at the door to see who is vaccinated and who is not. So our main purpose should be the protection of the students. You've got people walking in, if you're not checking, you're leaving ourselves open up for all kinds of
But,
problems.
Mr. Sinella, vaccinations are not mandated. So we cannot use vaccinations for that reason. Like, they're not mandated. This is
No, you
just-
can. You absolutely can.
Yeah, but
I
we don't have
agree
it
with it right
implemented.
now,
We did not
but you can.
implement that. That's not what Frank Shea was asking for. We didn't ask
Right,
to
but
implement.
you had said they're not mandated, so we can't do it, but they are.
They're not mandated in Revere.
Pardon me? No,
They're
at other
mandated to
sporting
go to a
events, they are
sports event?
mandated.
What? Excuse me?
They are mandated in other districts at their sporting events
Right.
and in their schools.
They're not mandated here, is what I said in Revere.
Oh, I didn't hear that part.
Oh, okay. That's what happens on Zoom.
Well, that's what happens when everyone talks over everyone.
Michaels, want to say what the substitute motion is?
I believe, if I'm wrong, Mr. Sinella, correct me, the substitute motion is to allow nobody in the games. No spectators, no parents, no nothing. Okay, so that's the motion that's being voted on right now. We need a roll call.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo,
No?
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
No.
Mr. Ferranti,
No.
Ms. Gravellisi,
No.
Mr. Sanella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
No.
Mayor Rigo.
Right, so the motion fails. Now we vote on the original.
Okay, the original motion.
Can we remake the original motion?
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. D'Ambrosio, couldn't hear you.
Could somebody remake the original motion?
We are.
Yes, thank you. So the original motion was to approve recommendations made by Athletic Director Frank Shea to limit the amount of spectators at athletic events to 2 spectators per athlete, with those spectators being a parent or caregiver. Roll call.
Mr. Bronson Rizzo,
Yes?
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sanella,
No.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Rigo.
Right, and the motion has passed.
Okay, the third late motion that we will be voting on today is a motion recommended by the superintendent to approve new rates for substitute teachers. The new rates would be for a 6.5-hour day. Substitutes with no degree would be $104. Those with a bachelor's would be $117, and those with certifications would be $130.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call.
Mr. Bronson Rizzo,
Yes?
Mr. D'Ambrosio,
Yes.
Ms. Ferranti,
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi,
Yes.
Mr. Sanella,
Yes.
Ms. Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Rigo.
Okay, I believe that's it for motions right now. The only things left is any old business. I didn't see that. No.
I think that Mrs. Bronson Rizzo had put that on the agenda. Is that right, Stacy? She might have. Oh, there she is.
No, I want to fall asleep, but I didn't. I don't know what you got, again, I don't know what you were all discussing. There weren't speakers on, but this was put back on because at the last meeting, we talked about this, and Dr. Kelly said that she was meeting with Dr. Perella and some other staff members on the following day, and she was going to get back to us with some information.
I have no new information at this time.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead,
there's, I've received calls on this, and it makes some sense, like if the kid doesn't pass and then makes it up and then gets a really, like, say got a D or an F or whatever, and then got an A or a B, then the A or B did not substitute for the F. I mean, they averaged the two. And I'll just speak as a teacher. It seems to me that when you get the kid to learn something, so the kid has demonstrated that the kid learns it, and that I don't think that we should hold failures against them, you know, forever. So I am certainly in favor of doing that, but I realize that we have not had a lot of discussion about it, and I think I'd like to get more input from the staff. So I know that usually on the last meeting of the year, we adjourn, I'll use my old Latin phrase, sine die, sine die if you want, which means that everything on the that we've been discussing in the past dies and we start anew. Except that I'd like to make an exception for this particular topic, because I think it's a very important topic for kids. And for parents, of course, too. So, and for teachers.
So, Carol, this wasn't for a vote or anything. This was to get more information because Dr. Kelly and some of the staff were going to be discussing it more after our last meeting. So
yes,
they can bring that information to us any time. We don't even have to go and send dive for that. It's just that parents, I had 2 parents that asked tonight. I said, if you watched last week, she's going to get back to us. If you look at the old business, it comes up again. So I just want to be able to get the right information to people. That's it.
Agreed. So,
and I think that we shared with people at the last meeting what the policy is right now, and the question was whether or not it could change. And honestly, I don't even know if I had the conversation I was supposed to have the day after that happened, the day after the last school committee meeting. It feels like a lot has happened at the high school since then.
I'm sure.
But
true. And you know what, Diane, we also discussed, once you change a policy like that, you're going backwards and you have to correct all the people in the past.
Yeah, so there's a lot of implications
there's a
that
lot
we have
to
to work
discuss.
through.
yes.
And, you know, I think that it's something that over the next few months we should try to work on and definitely engage parents and students in the conversation and teachers, as you mentioned, Stacy.
Agreed.
Why don't we just table for the time being based upon more
Yes,
information?
I'll move to table it.
Diane, can I ask if any forums have been planned with the parents at middle school and the high school yet?
There was a high school forum last night.
On this?
Great. Not particularly,
Oh,
no, because the topic last night was usurped by social media and sexual harassment and all of those things. I know there's another one scheduled for January 19th.
What about the middle school?
On
Yeah, is that the middle school?
On
the
general
grading?
topics of concern to parents at the high school.
Well, then
If we
maybe a
could
proper
be-
motion would be to refer this to the high school.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, that's,
I'll move this. I'll move to refer this,
What are we referring? We,
the topic of credit recovery and GPA to be sent to the high school
I don't-
principal for him to do research and get back
someone's talking.
Stacy, right now, she wants to refer it to Dr. Perella.
Well, it was referred to him.
All right, so now we need to wait to
So
get,
we just want information to come back so that we
Well, let's do it this
can
way.
address it.
Then let's be sure, let's set up a way to do it, okay? Let's send it back to him.
That's what I thought was
let
being
him
done
come back
last
to
month,
us.
but
let's get a meeting. Let's just get a meeting with him and let's get it squared
Yes.
away. Let's just get a meeting with it, let's take care of it, do what we have to do with it. Is that fair enough, Stacy?
yeah,
Okay.
I want to see meetings with the parents too on it.
So are we referring it to the, I'd want that to be an emotion. So I'll make that motion. Would someone care to second it?
Wait a minute, hold on.
What is your motion,
A
Carol?
motion that we refer this topic to Dr. Perella.
And for,
to the superintendent. We don't want to leave her out, of course.
well, we have to go through the superintendent. We can't go through him.
Could we
We have
just
to go
get
through the
going
super.
on this? Okay.
I will message to Dr. Perella that the school committee would like for him to convene meetings with parents and students on this topic and report back at some point in the future.
And I would like to see
Amen.
the same thing for middle school.
Because we did talk about the middle school last time too.
I do want to be careful. It's late.
What?
I'm going to hold my tongue.
You go for it, I don't care. I mean, middle school parents and educators are talking about the same things that they're talking about at high school. So we need to give them forum so that they can work together and try to do what's best for their schools and their students. I don't know what is difficult about that.
Well, I think these are things that the administrators themselves have to initiate.
I'll withdraw my motion and instead make a motion to put this in the hands of the superintendent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we all set with that now?
We're good.
Okay. All right, we're under the last item of new business. At this point, that the outgoing school committee members receive a clock from the school committee and the superintendent. Okay. And right now, we have 2 outgoing members. The first one is Fred Sinella. Unfortunately, Fred ran for re-election, didn't go his way. We've been doing this at a long, long time, Freddie. Doing a long time. And he did a great job. A lot of good insight. A lot of arguments, but that's part of the game. That's part of the game. And you'll be missed, and we wish you nothing but the best. So at this time, we'd like you to give you a desk clock from the school committee and superintendent.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say a few words.
Thank you.
Well, Fred and I go back a long way. A long, long way. And something. Okay, all right. We go back in politics when we were very young, and at some very unusual campaigns sometimes. Fred would be on one side, I'd be on the other side. But and I can't even say when it was over we were friends, because we were friends throughout it. When there was a division of the union, and I was the head of the teachers union, and Fred was involved with the administrators union, we often had real difficulties in seeing eye to eye. But even though Fred was a great combatant in any debate, you never got any nastiness. You never got him stooping to any levels. He was always a gentleman. He's always been courteous. He's always been kind. He's always been considerate in what he's done, and considerate of other people's feelings. That's why I was partly torn because, not wanting to support your motion, but you have, you're always out there and doing it, and I have to say, Fred, no matter where you were, whether you were taking care of a little kid who was having a hard time on a day in the Lincoln School or in the Wayland School, you were there for that kid who needed you. And we always talked about now and then what's best for the kids, and that was your mantra, that you were a father figure in the best sense of the word. You were always a gentleman, especially to women, but you were always a gentleman. That was a joke. He was just always there. Fred was a great competitor, still is. He was a wonderful person, totally devoted to this city, totally devoted to his job in this city, no matter what it was, no matter where he was, he did it all. Always, as I said, courteous, kind, and chivalrous, and smart, and made good decisions, Fred. And I, for one, I will miss you sitting beside me, so that when I couldn't work a microphone, you would help me, or get a chair for me, because that's what you do for everybody. And I wish you the best of luck. Don't be a stranger. You know, when we come to the point where we can meet again out socially, I hope we'll all have that opportunity to do that. So I wish you the best of luck, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you.
Mrs. Rizzo, you're up. Stacy, you there?
Her hand is down now.
Frederick, my heart is so full as I speak to you as my colleague. Each year, I see the joy on your face as graduating students and their loved ones meet at the Harry Delarusso Stadium. Every student who walks across that stage is a success story thanks to our combined efforts. It takes a pre-K through 12 team to make it happen, and you were a principal member. With your vision, we've been able to invest in our extraordinary staff, our school buildings, and our food service department. I have learned to be civic-minded because of your overwhelming commitment to our city and the school department. But I have said enough pretty things about you so far, so let me be me. You are the biggest pain in the butt. Between hearing about your days with Tom Birmingham, on the election department, the council, teaching at Lincoln, assistant principal at Wayland, and Parks and Recs, I feel like I should be your historian. But let's face it, your technology skills are why you were so valuable to our committee. I think not. But still, even with your lack of computer skills, you will forever be missed, but I am just some sand, some seagulls, and shells away. So please stay out of the trouble, my friend.
Ms. Ravelisi?
Thank you, Mr. Ferrante. Well, Freddie, I didn't have anything prepared to say, but I just want to let you know that it was an amazing, great pleasure to work with you for these past 8 years, and you will definitely be missed here on the committee, and I'm sure you will still be around because we'll still see you at the football games, we'll still see you at graduation, I know we'll still see you down Revere Beach, so even though you won't be joining us in our meetings, this isn't goodbye.
Anthony, you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm unfortunately on a flight, so I apologize that I couldn't meet you all.
I can't throw this clock and you catch it. I don't think I'll reach you.
Yeah.
Right, we'll get it to Anthony. Obviously, you know, you were here for 2 years, and you brought a different perspective to our committee. You were big with the equity thing, which really seems to be taking off big time. You have Dr. Garcia helping you in this whole matter. You will be missed, and we wish you nothing but the best. Good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. We didn't all always agree, but you all are the epitome of a stand-up group, especially Mr. Sinella in Outgoing. My God, we didn't always agree, but you stick firm to what you believe in, and you might be the most principled man in Revere politics, which is saying a lot. So congratulations to you and your illustrious career. I look forward to watching from the sidelines and remaining a part of civic activism in an informal sense. So thank you all for your presence over the last 2 years.
Hold on, Anthony. Ms. Ty has words of wisdom.
Me too.
Well,
My hand's
just,
gone up.
I'll miss you, Anthony. Of course, I tried to persuade you to run for school committee again.
I'm not going anywhere, but thank you.
Okay, then I'm glad to hear that. I'm really sorry I'm not going to have a Revere senator, but you did a great campaign, and I know that there are so many roads open to you, so many avenues that you can walk down, and so many challenges that you can meet and succeed with, and I like to think that maybe some of us here in the school department gave you some knowledge and some benefit of our experience and some of the things that you will remember in the good sense, and forget the rest that wasn't any good. But on the whole, Anthony, I found it such a pleasure to work with you. As a former English teacher, of course, I loved the way you wrote and the way you spoke. I loved your new perspective. I loved having a young person on there to be the opposite of there. Although surprisingly, even though I'm the oldest and you're the youngest, we had so many of the same points of view that it was such a pleasure to hear you talk about what your values were. So I look forward to spending time with you and to supporting you in whatever endeavor you choose for your future.
Thank you. Let's all get vaccinated and end this pandemic so we can get dinner or lunch. That would be the ultimate gift.
Mrs. Rizzo, you're up.
So, Anthony, I remember the first time I saw you at the National Night Out at Wayland, because some of my former female students came running up to me and asked if I saw that really cute guy running for school committee. I said to them, "Would you pick cute over me?" And they both said, "Yeah." So I told them, "Well, I'm glad you're only 14, you can't vote. But you did make an impact. You have been a true gentleman, and I'm sure that this will not be the last time we see or hear from you. Whatever you choose to do, make it what you truly want to do, and I truly wish you the best."
Well, thank you, and again, thank you all. I'm not going anywhere. Still be around the corner, but you guys have an amazing guide on this district going forward, and I'm excited to see what the new members have in store for the committee. You all rock. You'll be hearing from me, I'm sure, and thank you all.
Wait a minute, Anthony. Mr. Sinella?
Anthony, thank you for your kind words, and I wish you continued success in your chosen field, and I am quite certain we will be hearing from you in the future. Congratulations.
Ms. Bravalisi?
Anthony, it was great working with you the last 2 years, and as Mr. Sinella said, I'm sure we will all be seeing you and hearing, what you will be doing next in your future. I'm sure you will be doing great things as time goes on, and I was glad that we could all agree to disagree on all the topics throughout the last 2 years, and it was just a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Can I just briefly?
Good, Dr.
Sorry.
Kelly.
I'll be brief, but I did want to just say thank you to both Fred and Anthony. My job is not an easy job, but it's definitely more manageable when you have a school committee that really is centered on what kids need and what's best for kids. And I have been really fortunate to have that in all of these committee members, including Mr. Sinella and Mr. D'Ambrosio. And that's absolutely not lost on me. I hope it's not lost on the parents and the students and the teachers and the administrators, because they need to know that the functioning of a school committee is integral to the functioning of a school district. And so I just really appreciate both of you. Everybody talked about the diverging opinions, and that's what we need in order to be successful. So thank you both, and I'm glad that Anthony will still be around, and I know Fred will still be around, and we'll all have that opportunity to have dinner someday soon.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn. I need a second.
Roll call. Mrs. Bronson Rizzo? Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Mr. Franti?
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi?
Yes.
Mr. Sinella?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Arrigo? Good night, everybody.